Chapter 790, Glaring, L believe Qiao Xian is being completely reasonable. Let's maintain a respectful tone, shall we? There are numerous monks present who can serve as witnesses, if needed, Ms. Fong interjected. Madame Qiao, unable to counter the arguments of First Madam and Ms.Mi Jr. due to their higher social status, felt a surge of anger and shame. Her face turned sour as she replied, I am simply teaching my own daughter a lesson. What is the meaning behind all of this? Ms. Fong snorted in response, Qiao Xian is my daughter-in-law, and I am defending her. Before you attempt to teach your daughter a lesson, perhaps you should learn the complete truth first. You initiated everything without knowing the full story. Madam Qiao, please calm down. Let's hear the entire account first. I warn everyone that any interruptions will result in removal from this discussion. Madam Qiao struggled to contain her anger. Though furious, Ms.Mi Jr. refrained from provoking any further. Both women glared coldly at Qiao Xian, awaiting her testimony. Qiao Xian lowered her gaze and began recounting the events, starting with Yuezheng Ting's invitation, their meeting in the temple and back mountains, her fall from the mountains, and waking up to witness the recent incident. Qiao Xian provided a detailed account of the events, leaving no stone unturned. First Madam couldn't help but cast a disapproving look at Qiao Xian. This child was quite audacious. Despite being aware of Yuezheng Ting's dislike for her and her sister's mischievous nature, she still decided to attend their gathering alone. Such boldness. Ms. Fong also furrowed her brow at Qiao Xian, clearly showing her disapproval of the decision. Are you injured? Both ladies asked simultaneously, turning their attention to Qiao Xian. Feeling touched by their concern, Qiao Xian smiled and shook her head slightly. My left arm is a bit sore, but other than that, I'm fine. I've already sent someone to fetch a doctor. They should be here soon. Just wait for a little while, First Madam assured her. Thank you, Aunt. First Madam sneered and shifted her gaze towards Qiao Ko. Now, it's your turn. Do you have any objections to what Xian has said? Qiao Ko was taken aback. Qiao Ko felt the piercing gaze of her lineal mother on her. She wondered if it was just her imagination, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of impending doom. She was certain that she was doomed. Although something had happened to Qiao Wei, she was unscathed. How could she ever defend herself against the accusations that she hadn't taken good care of her younger sister? Her lineal mother would not believe it was a mere accident and would blame her for negligence. Qiao Ko had no grounds to refute Qiao Xian's account. It was true that they had invited her to their home and proposed a visit to Liulang Temple. Yuezheng Ting had arranged for lunch in a clean yard for their rest. They had attempted to conceal their ulterior motives by pretending it was a pilgrimage to pay tribute to the Buddha. But those arrangements served as evidence that they had invited Qiao Xian for this visit. They couldn't deny it. Moreover, Qiao Xian had fallen off the mountain first. That was a fact. Apart from this, Qiao Xian didn't provide any further details. She didn't even mention being pushed off the mountains. Qiao Ko trembled, her head hung low as she sobbed. Don't know, I truly don't know anything. She couldn't tarnish Qiao Xian's reputation or set her up. She didn't dare to do so, and she couldn't claim ignorance either. Their current circumstances were different. She wouldn't be able to unjustly frame or falsely accuse Qiao Xian because their biological mother wouldn't allow her to defend herself. Chapter 791, Qiao Ko's jealousy. The lineal mother only sought an outlet for her anger, regardless of how baseless and ridiculous that excuse might be. However, it was evident that the old tactic wouldn't work this time. First Madam and Ms. Fong were determined to prevent Qiao Xian from being wrongly accused. Even Madame Qiao couldn't exert control over these two women. Qiao Ko felt a mix of envy and bitterness. Qiao Xian seemed to be protected by an impenetrable shield, stronger than her own. Inwardly sneering, First Madam decided not to press Qiao Ko further. She let out a sigh and said emotionally, the child must have been frightened. Let's leave her be. Elder Miss Qiao, it's your turn. Qiao Wei had been eagerly awaiting her moment. She glared at Qiao Xian and asserted, it must have been Qiao Xian who framed us. I don't know. I don't know how she did it, but it must have been her. Why else would we all fall? It was her doing. Yuezheng Ting chimed in with a gleam in her eyes. Sister Qiao Wei is absolutely right. Qiao Xian must have set us up. Qiao Xian sneered in response. I'm genuinely curious about that as well. But you've given me a reminder. I didn't plan on mentioning this, but your maids actually pushed me from behind. I'm not sure how you fell, but maybe it was because you weren't accustomed to the mountains, and in your confusion, you tripped each other and fell as a group. Doesn't that seem plausible? Sister, your absurdity knows no bounds. Are you suggesting that I should be wrongly convicted regardless of whether I'm guilty or innocent? Qiao Xian retorted. You're lying. Qiao Xian, how dare you defy me? Qiao Wei snapped angrily. Qiao Wei had always been the dominant figure in the family, thanks to Madame Qiao's excessive doting. She believed that her words held absolute authority. Even if she claimed that the sun was square, both Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko would have no choice but to nod in agreement, rather than challenge her. For a long time, Qiao Wei had been adept at manipulating Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko to bend to her will. But now, Qiao Xian had slipped from her grasp. Qiao Xian staunchly contradicted her, exposing her humiliation for all to see. Furious and ashamed, Qiao Wei couldn't tolerate it any longer. Yet, Qiao Xian remained unafraid. She openly countered, what do you mean? You accuse me of something I didn't do, and am not allowed to defend myself? That's enough. Madame Qiao's voice quivered with anger. She was seething inside, but it was unclear whether she regretted raising Qiao Wei to be such an unreasonable girl. Wei, you're frightened and confused today. Stop this behavior now. Second Lady Yuezheng, please make the final decision for us. Madame Qiao's face contorted in frustration. Qiao Wei's actions were completely irrational and bothersome. She couldn't even trust her daughter's words, let alone expect others to do so. On the other hand, Qiao Xian was remarkably composed and logical. Madame Qiao couldn't help but regret allowing this troublesome girl to survive. Why hadn't she taken care of her from the very beginning? First Madame continued to provoke her. She furrowed her brow and spoke icily, Elder Miss Qiao, your words sound utterly ridiculous. Setting someone up requires a motive, otherwise, it's nothing more than a joke. Miss Fang wiped her tears and sighed deeply. My daughter-in-law is being bullied. Chapter 792, Too late, you're the one trying to set us up now. Do you think my daughter-in-law has no one to defend her? Poor girl, how much suffering must she have endured before getting married? Miss Fang's words dripped with disdain. Madame Qiao trembled with anger. What are you insinuating? Nis. Fang sneered. You don't understand what I'm saying. This sister of hers doesn't protect or support her own sister. Instead, she sets her up without even providing a decent excuse. Do you really need me to explain how she became like this? Madame Qiao seethed with rage, her face alternating between red and pale, trembling uncontrollably. Bastard, you absolute bastard. Qiao Wei erupted in anger. Who does she think she is? She doesn't deserve to be called my sister. Miss Fang glanced at her dismissively. That's not for you to decide, Elder Miss Qiao. You should ask your father about it. You, Wei. Madame Qiao snapped at Qiao Wei, signaling her to stop. She was also incensed by Ms. Fang's relentless targeting of someone much younger. How shameless. Qiao Wei ground her teeth together, glaring fiercely at Miss Fang. Miss Fang remained unfazed, raising an eyebrow with an air of disdain. Qiao Wei was only intimidating within the confines of their home. First Madame turned to Ms.Mi Jr. Second sister-in-law, I intend to investigate this matter. Can I count on your assistance? Ms.Mi Jr. sneered. Very well, elder sister-in-law. I appreciate your efforts. Ms.Mi Jr. understood that when her elder sister-in-law made a proposal, she had no choice but to agree. She would assign her own men to assist in the investigation, as they feared her authority. She would simply follow the orders and ensure the task was carried out. First Madam then addressed Madam Qiao. Madam Qiao, do you have any objections? Madam Qiao was filled with objections, but with Ms.Mi Jr. already on board, she had no choice but to voice her agreement. She forced herself to nod. Please, First Madam, I will see if Auntie Ling can be of any assistance to you. In an instant, First Madam commanded, take the 3 maids down. Bind and gag them, then interrogate them one by one. Auntie Hua and her maids swiftly moved into action, swiftly subduing the maids before they could call for help. She, assist Auntie Hua with the interrogations. Chu and Auntie Liang, go and inquire about the monks. Remember, maintain politeness. With several individuals departing, the room fell into a hushed silence once again. At that moment, the doctors arrived. First Madam instructed them to examine Xiao Xian. Yuezheng Ting pursed her lips, feeling disheartened. Despite being a part of the Yuezheng family, her elder aunt was now aiding an outsider. She couldn't comprehend what was so special about Xiao Xian that garnered her elder aunt's attention. Ms.Mi Jr. also harbored a dislike for the situation but dared not voice her opinion. She was already convinced of the culprit's identity. Furthermore, First Madam had ample justification for her actions. She was no match for her. She realized that she lacked any authority or influence in this situation, so she chose not to subject herself to further humiliation. Madam Qiao, Qiao Ko, and Qiao Wei were equally taken aback. They hadn't anticipated that First Madam would show such concern for Xiao Xian. Madam Qiao deeply regretted her past actions. If she had known about Xiao Xian's relationship with First Madam, she would have prevented Xiao Wei and Yuezheng Ting from plotting against her. Instead, she would have compelled Xiao Xian to foster a better rapport between herself and First Madam. Chapter 793, Not dropping regrettably, it was too late for Madam Qiao to take any corrective action. She had paid 2 visits to second Mrs. Yuezheng and engaged in friendly conversations, unaware that First Madam was well aware of these meetings. A burning sensation consumed Madam Qiao's heart. She glared fiercely at Xiao Xian, wishing she could incinerate her on the spot. She had misjudged her completely. It now dawned on her just how wrong she had been about Xiao Xian all this time. Surely, this cunning girl was reveling in their predicament, secretly mocking them. The doctor confirmed that Xiao Xian had suffered a minor fracture in her arm, along with some superficial skin wounds and strained muscles. She needed ample rest. Additionally, due to her fall from the mountain, there was a possibility of a head injury, requiring further examination in the coming days. First Madam gazed at her with genuine concern. You have endured so much. Good girl, rest well and don't dwell on these matters. If you need anything, send someone to me, and I will provide assistance without hesitation. Miss Fang sighed once more. You must be more cautious. Why did you venture alone without a maid? Take good care of yourself when you return home. Xiao Xian replied with sweetness, Mom, Aunt, I apologize for this incident. I promise to exercise caution and prioritize rest upon returning home. That's good to hear. Madam Qiao and Ms.Mi Jr. were left speechless, their hearts heavy with regret. First Madam finally instructed the doctor to examine Yuezheng Ting and Xiao Wei. Fortunately, neither of them had any serious injuries, only a few minor skin wounds. Xiao Wei had a longer cut on her arm, but it was expected to heal without leaving a scar. Madam Qiao and Ms.Mi Jr. found themselves at a loss for words. Their daughter's injuries were not severe enough to justify their anger and resentment. Auntie Hua swiftly obtained the results and returned to deliver the message. As witnesses, they needed to know the truth behind the incident. Yuezheng Ting had orchestrated the entire affair. She had invited Xiao Xian and arranged the outing at Liulang Temple. Sensibly. She had chosen a mountain behind the temple to carry out their plan, rather than in her own abbey. The maids bravely confessed that they were instructed by Yuezheng Ting and Xiao Wei to push Xiao Xian off the mountains. Auntie Hua chose to withhold the remaining details, in an attempt to preserve some dignity for Yuezheng Ting and Xiao Wei. However, everyone present was well aware that the maids wouldn't have taken such action without orders from their respective mistresses. Miss Fang grew increasingly agitated, her gaze filled with disdain as she directed it towards Madame Qiao and Ms.Mi Jr. She sneered, "Madame Qiao, you better keep a close eye on your daughter and leave my daughter-in-law alone. She is wicked and malicious to the core. Perhaps she will spend the rest of her life in loneliness." "What's the matter? Can't accept the truth?" Miss Fang retorted, delivering a verbal blow that left Xiao Wei and Madame Qiao feeling utterly exposed and scorched by shame. Miss Fang's blame was directed towards Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei, but Yuezheng Ting felt deeply humiliated by the accusations. Unable to contain her anger, she snapped back, "It was all Qiao Wei's idea. I only helped because I thought we were friends. I have nothing to do with this. You can put all the blame on her. After all, we're talking about her own sister here. Mother, one want to go home now." Xiao Wei was stunned, her eyes filled with disbelief as she stared at Yuezheng Ting. "It was you," Madame Qiao swiftly intervened, interrupting Xiao Wei and restraining her own overwhelming frustration. She spoke with a dark tone, "Xiao Wei has always been shielded under my protection. She is too innocent to be aware of any of this." Chapter 794, Blaming, but she is not out to do anything evil, like setting up sisters. It must have been the maid who persuaded her to do so. The maid grew up with her miss, and her miss adores her deeply. She even tried to turn me against her a few days ago, so I lectured Wei. I thought she had changed herself, but apparently, she came up with a new idea like this. I will definitely punish her now. How terrible. Xian, Madame Qiao tried to present herself as friendly. "You are a very kind-hearted and understanding girl, and you barely need our care. Your sister is misguided, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive her." Xiao Wei clenched her hand tightly, feeling the stinging pain. She bit her lip, consumed by distress. Since when did she have to beg Qiao Xian for forgiveness? Qiao Wei's heart ached, overwhelmed by the sheer humiliation of the situation. She couldn't comprehend what was happening. Was it all just a terrible dream? This person, who didn't even dare meet her gaze and whom she could lecture and strike as she pleased, was now someone she had to plead for forgiveness from. Qiao Xian was being defended and protected, and even her mother felt the need to bow to her. Tears welled up in Xiao Wei's eyes, cascading down her cheeks uncontrollably. She felt a rush of humiliation and hastily wiped them away, trying to conceal her vulnerability. Concerned, Madame Qiao interjected, "Xian, your sister is crying because she feels remorse." But she wasn't. Her tears were born out of anger. The blades of humiliation struck Qiao Wei's heart, causing her face to flush with heat. The amalgamation of anger, humiliation, sadness, and embarrassment became unbearable. Overwhelmed, she sought solace in Madame Qiao's embrace, her sobs echoing with pain. Madame Qiao comforted her, secretly berating Qiao Xian in her thoughts. What a despicable person. First Madame had watched everything impassively. Ms.Mi Jr. shifted the blame onto her maid. The two maids stood pale and trembling, afraid to utter a single word in their defense. Their lives were at the mercy of their mistresses, and any opposition could cost them dearly. But for young maids, they might even suffer a lot before they die. Qiao Xian chimed in, "Aunt, now that we have identified the culprits, please make a decision." It was the maids who coerced them. As long as Yuezheng Ting and Xiao Wei insisted that the maids acted of their own volition, no one would have concrete evidence to prove otherwise, although everyone was well aware of the truth. First Madame could certainly pressure the maids to reveal the true mastermind, but Qiao Xian didn't want that to happen. She and the Qiao family could part ways. However, First Madame didn't have to sever ties with the extended family for the sake of an outsider like Qiao Xian. If news of the incident spread, it would cast her in a negative light, implying she was petty. After all, she was unharmed, wasn't she? Qiao Wei and Yuezheng Ting had already suffered reputational damage, which was worse than Qiao Xian's situation. People tend to sympathize with those who have endured greater suffering, sadly reflecting the nature of society. As the wife of the provincial champion, Shao Yunduan had a promising future. Qiao Xian hadn't sustained any serious injuries or even been frightened, so she could gracefully withdraw and preserve her good reputation. That would be preferable, wouldn't it? Qiao Xian's words implicitly confirmed her agreement to hold the maids responsible. First Madam comprehended her intention and couldn't help but inwardly sigh. This child was truly perceptive. Sister-in-law, Li is Ting's maid. Do you believe Ting should also bear some responsibility? Chapter 795, Compensation Ms.Mi Jr. gritted her teeth. Yes. Then how do you plan to make amends? Ms.Mi Jr.'s eyes widened. Another compensation? She had already sacrificed 10,000 liang, and now she was being asked for more? B0x. Calm First Madam spoke up. Xian was fortunate not to encounter any harm. However, the maids did attempt to harm her. If something had actually happened, do you think a mere maid would have sufficed to resolve the matter? Xian is the wife of the provincial champion, and provincial champion Shao happens to be a close friend of young Master Xia, who is aguist of the Xia family. She was implying that if something had truly befallen Shao Xian, Shao Yunduan might turn to the influential Xia family, who could delve deeper into the situation and involve more individuals than just the maid. After Shao Yunduan became the provincial champion, Xia Jingrong had proudly publicized their friendship. Shao Yunduan even received an invitation to visit the esteemed Xia family. The Xia family highly valued their association with a provincial champion, and Xia Jingrong had always spoken highly of him. Under the weight of First Madam's influence, Ms.Mi Jr. quickly retreated. Elle will compensate Mrs. Shao with 5,000 liang for the trouble she encountered. Only 5,000? What about 8,000? Just 8,000? 10,000 then? Isn't that enough? Is a mere 10,000 enough for attempted murder? Ms.Mi Jr.'s fury intensified, causing her heart to ache. Then state the amount. 50,000 liang. What? First Madam stated the sum calmly, nearly choking Ms.Mi Jr. with the weight of it. Madame Qiao and her daughters were all taken aback, stunned by the staggering figure. Qiao Wei felt tears welling up, unable to comprehend the magnitude of 50,000 liang. Qiao Ko's eyes darted to Qiao Xian, a mix of jealousy and envy coursing through her. 50,000 liang? That was an exorbitant sum. While they might not be able to afford such an amount, the compensation would certainly be substantial. How fortunate was this detestable woman to receive such staunch defense from First Madam. Though the Yuezheng family possessed wealth, Ms.Mi Jr. herself had limited resources. She sneered, why not just rob me outright, elder sister-in-law? First Madam inwardly responded, yes, I am essentially robbing you. So what? I've already told you, Xian is the wife of the provincial champion. She was not some obscure figure. She held the esteemed title of the provincial champion's wife. Her young husband had achieved the remarkable feat of becoming a provincial champion in his very first attempt at the examination, an incredibly rare accomplishment. He possessed a bright and promising future. However, her husband would never tolerate his wife being framed and almost killed by someone from the Yuezheng family. Unless they offered the most sincere apology and took into consideration the implications for First Madam and Yuezheng Shao, they would not let this matter go. Ms.Mi Jr. found herself at a loss for words, growing increasingly irritated. But I don't have that much cash, that is not my concern. In the end, Ms.Mi Jr. had no choice but to reluctantly agree to provide the cash to Qiao Xian within 3 days. First Madam added, you must also offer a formal apology. What? Ms.Mi Jr. exclaimed, elder sister-in-law, this is going too far. First Madam shot her a cold glance. You made a mistake, and yet you are unwilling to apologize? Either you or Ting will suffice. Yuezheng Ting had already been silenced by fear. She dared not make a move or defend herself, keeping her head lowered as if oblivious to the proceedings. Elder Aunt was the person she feared the most. Elder Aunt had always disregarded petty matters. She paid no attention to their minor schemes and deceit. However, when she set her mind to something, no one could surpass her. Yuezheng Ting had been well aware of this for quite some time, but she was unwilling to apologize to Qiao Xian. It was utterly humiliating. She was a young girl who cherished her reputation and dignity. She couldn't bear the thought of losing face. Chapter 796, ceasing Ms.Mi Jr. had a multitude of angry retorts on the tip of her tongue, but when First Madam emphasized Qiao Xian's status as the provincial champion's wife, she found herself unable to utter another word. Feeling conflicted and not wanting her daughter to bear any more pain, Ms.Mi Jr. reluctantly offered her apology. Qiao Xian was already quite content with the outcome. Without First Madam's intervention, she wouldn't have achieved such a favorable resolution. First Madam had pushed Ms.Mi Jr. to her limits, ensuring that she didn't harbor any ill feelings over the matter. Simultaneously, she did not want First Madam to become entangled in her own predicament. Qiao Xian graciously accepted the apology. And with that, the incident came to an end. B0X. First Madam stated that if a similar incident were to occur in the future, they should report the entire matter to the appropriate governmental authorities. She felt too ashamed to continue serving as the mediator. These words weighed heavily on Ms.Mi Jr. and Yuezheng Ting's hearts. They were pained, yet startled as well. Once Ms.Mi Jr. had settled, it was Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei's turn to address the situation. First Madam gazed up at Madame Qiao, causing her to tremble involuntarily. She forced a smile. "We will discuss this further when we return home. I apologize for the inconvenience, First Madam." She insinuated that the matter was their own affair and there was no need for First Madam to interfere. First Madam and Qiao Xian shared a good relationship, and she was not easily swayed by Madame Qiao's words. Furthermore, Ms. Fong was on their side as well. Ms. Fong strongly disagreed with the suggestion. "I'll disagree, Madam-in-law. Even brothers settle matters fairly. Elder Miss Qiao's maid nearly killed my daughter-in-law, and I implore First Madam to arbitrate. She is known for her fairness, so please, First Madam, be the judge." A smile played on First Madam's lips. "Thank you for your support, Sister Fong. I won't allow Xian to suffer just to defend herself. Moreover, both maids were involved in the same scheme, so they should face equal punishment. It's a simple matter, and I can act as the witness." Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei were taken aback. They were on the verge of exploding in anger. Madame Qiao would never admit that the maid was the mastermind. Even Ms.Mi Jr. didn't blame her own maid. So now, Madame Qiao was expected to apologize to Qiao Xian and pay her 50,000 liang? It was simply outrageous. Madame Qiao tightly grasped Qiao Wei's hands, urging her to remain silent. She spoke in a low voice, filled with regret. "Xian, you were the victim in this incident, and I apologize for our actions. But we are sisters, let's put an end to this." Qiao Xian responded, her tone firm, "I am the daughter-in-law of the Shao family and the wife of the provincial champion. I accept your apology. However, when will you provide me with the 50,000 liang? One believe in treating everyone equally, don't you?" Qiao Wei couldn't contain her disdain any longer and sneered, "You have the audacity to ask for 50,000 liang." In her eyes, this woman wasn't even worth 50,000 liang as a human being. Ms.Mi Jr. sneered as well, but she had no intention of staying any longer. Moreover, with outsiders present, Madame Qiao would not be able to display her influence effectively. So she decided to leave with Yuezheng Ting and requested First Madam to accompany them. First Madam turned her attention to Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian exchanged a glance with her, nodding to indicate that it was fine. First Madam departed with Ms.Mi Jr. and Yuezheng Ting, creating a sense of relief in the room. With their departure, Madame Qiao, Qiao Wei, and Qiao Ko let out a collective sigh, finally feeling a sense of relaxation. Qiao Wei abandoned her pretense and locked her gaze onto Qiao Xian, sneering disdainfully. "Who do you think you are? The daughter of a lowly concubine. You are not even worth the position of a maid in front of my mother and me. What gives you the audacity to demand apologies and compensation from us? 50,000 liang? Do you truly have the nerve to ask for such a sum?" Chapter 797, Apology Bang. A loud noise resonated through the room as Ms. Fong slammed her hand on the table, causing the teacup to wobble and creating a startle for Madame Qiao and her daughter. "Elder Miss Qiao, you are truly despicable. How dare you, why not?" "Humph. You should address me as your sister-in-law's mother. How dare you insult someone by calling them a low-class maid? I will inform my son and have him confront your father about this matter. You cannot bully people like this. Qiao Xian felt a warm surge of reassurance flowing through her heart. She gently held on to Ms. Fang's arm and whispered, "Mother, please calm down. B0X. Calm." Ms. Fang was genuinely furious. She sneered, "They believe they are superior to us. Well then, let's inform Yunduan and have him defend us. Mrs.-in-law, we are family, and we can resolve this through discussion." Madame Qiao interjected, feeling a mix of anger and anxiety. She couldn't allow Ms. Fang to leave like this. If Shao Yunduan were to learn about the situation and inform the old master, Xiao Wei would undoubtedly face severe consequences. Wei, apologize. Mom. Apologize, now. Madame Qiao's voice snapped with authority. Qiao Wei clenched her lips tightly, unwilling to comply. Qiao Xian let out a disdainful snort and spoke calmly, "Mother, don't force your sister to do something against her will. 1 am accustomed to receiving apologies. But I am curious, when will you be returning the 50,000 liang to me?" Ms. Fang sneered in agreement. "Not a single penny less. Otherwise, I will have my son inquire about this with Officer Qiao." Madame Qiao's face contorted in frustration. "Qiao Xian, are you really going this far? Your father is returning to the capital soon, and Shao Yunduan will be taking the examination there. He is a stranger in that city, and aren't you considering the assistance your father could provide?" Qiao Xian sneered back. "These are separate matters. Are you attempting to threaten me, mother? Besides, as far as I know, my husband's examination will take place before father can even secure a transfer back to the capital. How would this so-called help work? You will be going back to the capital with your husband, won't you? And because of your interference, I wonder if you will bring trouble or aid to my husband." "Yes." Ms. Fang interjected sharply. "Stop with the sweet talk, and pay us what is owed." Ms. Fang hesitated for a moment upon hearing Madame Qiao's words, but as she listened further, she realized that Qiao Xian was correct in her assessment of Madame Qiao. Madame Qiao was not concerned about her son's well-being, she was instead causing him trouble. Madame Qiao grew increasingly annoyed and responded bluntly, "We don't have 50,000 liang at home. If you want it, go ask your father yourself." "In that case, I will do just that," Qiao Xian sneered. "And I will also ask Elder Aunt to document today's events so I can present it to my father. He shouldn't assume I am lying and let others distort the truth." Madame Qiao trembled with fury, her eyes filled with icy anger. "Ms. Qiao, don't worry. Duan will help you. My daughter-in-law will never be bullied, not even by her own mother's family. Bah! Don't underestimate us." Ms. Fang reassured Qiao Xian while pulling her away. "Let's stop wasting our time with them. They are nothing but irritants to me." Madame Qiao. After Qiao Xian departed with her mother-in-law, Madame Qiao, in a fit of anger, grabbed the teacups and hurled them at Qiao Ko, cursing, "Useless thing. Your sister is honest and straightforward, and I entrusted her to your care. Why do you always fail at everything?" Chapter 798, Jealousy. Qiao Ko trembled on her knees. "Mother, it's my fault, enough. No more tears." Madame Qiao snapped, silencing her daughter. Qiao Ko bit her lips, desperately trying to hold back her tears, but they continued to stream down her face. She couldn't control Qiao Wei or stop her from doing as she pleased. If she had the power to do so, it would be a different story altogether. But she was bound by the control her lineal mother had over her life. No matter how much pain she felt, she had to suppress it deep within. She couldn't even defend herself in front of her own father. B0X. Calm as she thought about Qiao Xian, her emotions welled up. Qiao Xian had endured far worse circumstances than she had, yet she had managed to rise above it all. She was now surrounded by people who protected and supported her, and her husband was a provincial champion. Jealousy consumed Qiao Ko's heart. With a resolute determination, she made up her mind to steal Qiao Wei's marriage. Mom, do we really have to give that wretched woman 50,000 liang? No, never. She doesn't deserve a single thing. Qiao Ko declared vehemently, her eyes filled with envy and resentment. Enough. Madame Qiao restrained herself from slapping Qiao Ko, but her voice was cold and cutting. Shame on you. You've messed up everything. Qiao Wei interjected, feeling uneasy. Elle didn't expect this. Yuezheng Ting came up with the idea. She promised it would work, but how could I have known she'd be so useless? Madame Qiao closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Opening her eyes, she spoke slowly, join me to the Shao family today. Qiao Wei's expression changed. Why? To apologize, of course. Madame Qiao replied firmly. Listen carefully now. You must seek Qiao Xian's forgiveness, no matter what it takes. This way, she will never bring up the issue of compensation again. Mother. Qiao Wei was both surprised and furious. Are you asking me to bow down to Qiao Xian? Yes. Madame Qiao didn't care about her daughter's mood anymore. She sneered, it's time for you to develop your own character. Use Qiao Xian as a means to strengthen yourself. I'm doing this for your own good, so don't overlook the opportunity. Qiao Wei. Getting herself humiliated by Qiao Xian for her own good? Qiao Wei was disappointed and saddened. Even her mother was treating her like this? Madame Qiao felt tired and annoyed, lectured her a few more sentences before bringing them back to the hostel. Back at the hostel, concubine Du saw Madame Qiao and elder Miss dark faces and the weird atmosphere around them, and she was very cautious as she served them. Back in Qiao Ko's room, concubine Du asked what was going on. Qiao Ko was shedding tears, but she could not utter a word. She did not tell concubine Du what was going on. Nor did she throw herself into her mother's arms. She was no longer this weak anymore. She knew clearly that concubine Du could not give her any consolation. Nor could she obtain justice for her. She could not even keep her own private money. What happened? Ko, don't frighten me, tell me now. Concubine Du's constant questions made Xiao Ko impatient. She wiped the tears and recounted the whole thing. Concubine Du got anxious. Why did you offend Xiao Xian anyway? Chapter 799, Not my idea. Elle told you not to offend Xiao Xian anymore. She is not part of the Qiao family, and she won't give you any barriers. She is provincial champion's wife and offending her doesn't help you. You know, life is unpredictable. We never could have imagined that Xiao Xian would rise to such prominence. It's important not to antagonize her. Who knows, if Shao Yunduan secures a position in the governmental office, you being her sister might come in handy. You may find yourself in need of her support one day. Concubine Du sighed. Qiao Ko snorted and threw a disdainful look at concubine Du B0X. This woman knew nothing but kept talking about how to depend on others. What was the point? You think it had been my intention? Yeah. Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei told me to follow the order, and what else could I do to object to that? Concubine Du was at a loss for words, feeling the weight of Qiao Ko's predicament. She knew that going against the orders of Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei was not an option for Qiao Ko. They were both stubborn and difficult to sway, making it challenging to please them. Frustration welled up within concubine Du, and she clenched her teeth in anger. This life is truly unbearable. Once we return to the capital, I will find a way to secure a good match for you, so you can get married. Qiao Ko glanced at her, her expression filled with a mixture of skepticism and resignation. She no longer believed in concubine Du's promises or held any high expectations. She had experienced disappointment before, and she was determined not to let herself be disappointed again. There was little trust left between them, and Xiao Ko knew she had to rely on herself to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. She was determined to find a suitable suitor on her own. She didn't need concubine Du's assistance. The constant nagging from concubine Du became background noise to Qiao Ko, as if mosquitoes were buzzing in her ears. Claiming exhaustion, she declared her need for sleep and managed to silence concubine Du's prattling. The next day, Madame Qiao and Xiao M/EI left to make the apology, leaving concubine Du and Xiao Ko behind. It was evident that Madame Qiao didn't want them present for Qiao Wei's humbling encounter with Qiao Xian. Meanwhile, Shao Yunduan was at home. Madame Qiao took the opportunity to remind everyone of the Qiao family's noble status in the capital and their past service to the emperor. She emphasized their valuable connections, including Qiao Wei's engagement to a duke's mansion. Madame Qiao expressed her intention to support Shao Yunduan once he was in the capital, leveraging their influence to help him progress. She proposed that they put the past behind them, forgive each other, and continue socializing as before. Shao Yunduan firmly rejected Madame Qiao's offer. I have my own plans, Madame Qiao. You don't need to worry about me. My wife cannot be bullied like this. Madame Qiao sneered, ready to mock Shao Yunduan's naivety. Without influential connections in the capital, a poor scholar like him would never succeed. It would take him decades to achieve even a minor position, perhaps becoming a low-ranking officer in the Imperial Academy if luck was on his side. However, she realized it was not the appropriate time to voice her doubts. Qiao Wei was unwilling and filled with remorse. She didn't want to be here apologizing. This infuriated Ms. Fang, who couldn't contain her frustration and lashed out at Qiao Wei, pushing her to the brink of explosion. Madame Qiao, anxious and angry, intervened and insisted that Qiao Wei make the apology. The whole situation felt like a farce, a meaningless charade. In the end, Madame Qiao promised to provide immediate compensation of 10,000 liang, with the remaining 4 to be repaid in the future. Chapter 800, No choice however, the IOU note had to be written in Xiao Xian's handwriting. The note detailed the events of the previous day and explained the debt owed. Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei also left their fingerprints on the note as a sign of acknowledgement. Madame Qiao reluctantly agreed, fully aware that the note served as a bargaining chip in Xiao Xian's possession. Neither party expected the debt to be repaid, nor did they anticipate Xiao Xian to inquire about it. Madame Qiao had no choice but to accept the terms. In exchange, Xiao Xian promised not to tell the incident not be reported to the old master. B0x. Madame Qiao reluctantly agreed, with the condition that the money would be provided to Xiao Xian within 3 days after their return to the county. However, Madame Qiao only had 1,000 liang in cash. She had no alternative but to comply, understanding that if the old master were to find out, Qiao Wei would face punishment, and the old master would be deeply disappointed in her. She had maintained her reputation as a virtuous wife throughout her entire life, and she couldn't afford to tarnish it now, especially in the eyes of the old master. Her only hope was that her son would attain a high-ranking position and her daughter would become capable and accomplished. Only then would she have nothing to fear. However, she knew that such a day had not yet arrived. If the old master harbored any resentment towards her, her life would be miserable upon their return to the capital. The risk was too great to take. Madame Qiao and Xiao Wei were infuriated as they left Xiao Xian's residence. Upon their return to the hostel, Qiao Ko received further punishment in the form of slaps to her face. From that day forward, Madame Qiao never visited Xiao Xian again. However, she did encounter Ms.Mi Jr. once more, and after 2 days had passed, they all returned to the county. Qiao Wei would have normally confided in her father about the incident, but this time she remained silent. Madame Qiao warned her sternly, emphasizing the importance of keeping everything a secret, regardless of her doubts or dissatisfaction. Madame Qiao couldn't disclose the truth about whether or not Xiao Xian had helped. She also mentioned that the first madam had never been kind to Xiao Xian anyway. Furthermore, she added that the family was difficult to befriend due to their arrogance. Officer Qiao believed his wife's words and felt regretful about the situation, but he chose not to inquire further. At the Yuezheng family's residence, Ms.Mi Jr. was unable and unwilling to pay the 50,000 liang in cash. Even if she had the means, she refused to do so. Consequently, she decided to discuss the matter with her husband. Ms.Mi Jr. selectively withheld the truth, only sharing the part of the story that could benefit her. Upon hearing about the 50,000 liang demand, the second old master became furious. He exclaimed that they were being utterly bullied. How could they rob their own family like this? They were all part of the same family, and such mistreatment was unacceptable. The second old master's anger reached a boiling point, and he even contemplated confronting the first madam along with Ms.Mi Jr. Typically, the second old master refrained from involving himself in family matters. He knew that he couldn't compete with the influential first section of the family, so he preferred to maintain silence. However, seeing his sons doing well gave him some consolation. Yet, it didn't mean that the first section of the family could exploit them as they pleased. Startled by her husband's reaction, Ms.Mi Jr. quickly intervened. What she truly needed was for her husband to assist her in covering the debt, not to create further trouble by confronting the first madam. Fearful of the consequences, Ms.Mi Jr. was reluctant to allow the second old master to confront the first madam, knowing that it would put her at a disadvantage. To avoid worsening the situation, Ms.Mi Jr. decided to adopt a more amicable approach. She attempted to convince the second old master not to pursue the matter any further. Although the second old master was taken aback by this unexpected change in attitude, he restrained himself from escalating the conflict with the first madam. Chapter 801, Bad Luck. Fueled by anger and a sense of injustice, the second old master couldn't simply let the matter go. The amount in question was 50,000 liang, not a trivial sum of 5,000. After contemplating the situation, he decided to approach his own mother, Madame Yuezheng, seeking her support and assistance. Surely, Madame Yuezheng, being the matriarch of the family, would be able to help them. To gain Madame Yuezheng's sympathy, the second old master embellished the story, presenting it in a way that painted their family as victims of undue oppression. His intention was to provoke a strong reaction from Madame Yuezheng, hoping that she would stand up for them. Madame Yuezheng, who held a deep admiration for her second son's family, was well aware of their intelligence and capabilities. However, she couldn't deny that her elder son's family was competent. Furthermore, she couldn't muster much interest or concern when it came to her second son's lack of a male heir. As a result, she wasn't always inclined to defend them in every situation. B0x. Calm. However, Madame Yuezheng found her elder son's wife's demands excessive. Wanting to extract 50,000 liang from the second section of the family seemed unjustifiably high. With a sense of urgency, Madame Yuezheng summoned both the first madam and Ms.Mi Jr. to her presence. Ms.Mi Jr. was filled with bitter frustration, never expecting that her husband would take such actions behind her back. The first madam proceeded to share the entire story, recounting how Yuezheng Ting had made an attempt on the life of the provincial champion's wife. Given the close relationship between the Xia family and the provincial champion Shao, with the Xia family considering him an honored guest and having a strong bond with their young master, it was highly unlikely that provincial champion Shao would forgive them without a substantial compensation of 50,000 liang. Understanding the Xia family's influence and the importance of maintaining their connection, Madame Yuezheng contemplated whether Yuezheng Ting deserved severe punishment for her actions. Ms.Mi Jr. found herself in a difficult position, unable to defend her actions but weakly attempting to explain that it was the fault of a maid. Madame Yuezheng and the second old master were both taken aback by the revelations. The second old master's anger intensified as he glared at Ms.Mi Jr. Why didn't you inform me of this earlier? This is not what you told me. Look at the mess you've created. Madame Yuezheng's brow furrowed. That is your own fault. You should be capable enough to relay a story accurately, shouldn't you? As a united family, there was no need for them to hide the truth. It was common knowledge that the maid acted under the instructions of Yuezheng Ting. Everyone was aware of this fact. Ms.Mi Jr. had no ground to argue. However, she found the demanded compensation excessive. She bitterly complained, Ting made a mistake. It was all because of elder Miss Qiao's influence. Elder Miss Qiao wanted to punish her sister out of jealousy for her better life. But Ting got dragged into it. I will tell Ting to cut ties with her. But mother, I don't have 50,000 liang. The second old master sneered, you can gather the cash yourself. I won't be able to help you. With those words, the second old master stormed off in anger, leaving Ms.Mi Jr. shocked and at a loss. He just left like that? What was she supposed to do now? Mother. Ms.Mi Jr. turned to Madame Yuezheng, tears welling up in her eyes. Madame Yuezheng frowned. She couldn't simply let it go. Nor could she expect her elder son's wife to provide the funds. That was out of the question. Moreover, she believed that Ms.Mi Jr. deserved to be punished. While it was possible that elder Miss Qiao held a grudge against her sister, it didn't necessarily mean that Yuezheng Ting had no involvement. Perhaps Ms.Mi Jr. was also implicated in some way. Madame Yuezheng had no interest in delving into the matter with Ms.Mi Jr. She understood everything implicitly. Chapter 802, Compensation. L will pay 30,000 liang for you, and you will take care of the rest. Madame Yuezheng, having considerable wealth, instructed her servant to bring 30,000 liang in cash and handed it directly to First Madam. First Madam had no objections to this arrangement. Madame Yuezheng had her own personal funds, and she was free to allocate them as she pleased, as long as she wasn't forced to dip into the shared savings of the family. The first section of the family did not require Madame Yuezheng's assistance in this manner. B0X. Second sister-in-law, should I have my people collect the remaining amount now or tomorrow? Asked First Madam, indicating that they would retrieve the money the following day. Ms.Mi Jr. became infuriated and responded bitterly, L will send my people to deliver it to you, elder sister-in-law. Very well. I will be waiting. Bah. Ms.Mi Jr. had 20,000 liang in cash, but it was a substantial portion of her personal savings. Reluctantly, she gathered the cash and requested Auntie Ling to arrange for its prompt delivery. She wanted to put this matter behind her as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, First Madam added some exquisite brocades that her son had gifted to her the previous year, along with a set of beautiful ornaments, to the presents she was taking to the Shao family. She personally headed there to deliver the gifts. Qiao Xian had no intention of accepting First Madam's presents, but she insisted with a smile, saying, I am your aunt, and this is a gesture to help you feel more at ease. I have plenty of these items stored away. Qiao Xian smiled appreciatively and accepted all the gifts. First Madam engaged in small talk with Qiao Xian for a while before advising, you should discuss the management of your lands with the estate manager so they can take care of them in your absence. It's time for you to return home as soon as possible. Shao will handle everything else for you. When you visit next time, you can evaluate and select any preferred managers and page boys to keep here. Perceiving Qiao Xian's confusion, First Madam responded with a sigh and a smile. Ting and your sister found themselves in a compromising situation with two men in broad daylight. Just wait and see, the rumor mill will undoubtedly spread. People will mock us, and they won't know how to handle it. I have always been the one to clean up their messes, but this time, I'm staying out of it. It's a lesson they need to learn from. That's why it's best for you to leave soon and distance yourself from this situation. First Madam had no daughters who needed to secure marriage alliances, and her granddaughter was still too young to worry about such matters. Furthermore, the two branches of the family were distinct entities. People wouldn't be foolish enough to hold the first section of the family accountable for the misdeeds of the second section. If anyone dared to think otherwise, the first section of the family would simply disregard them. Qiao Xian suddenly grasped the underlying dynamics. Indeed, she was tangentially involved, and staying here for too long would only invite unnecessary trouble upon herself. Realizing that it was in her best interest to distance herself from the situation, Qiao Xian expressed her gratitude to First Madam. Aunt, I sincerely thank you for reminding me. I almost overlooked that aspect. We will make the necessary preparations and leave in 2 days' time. That's good, and Xuan will accompany you on the journey back home. Thank you so much, Aunt. First Madam smiled warmly. It's nothing, really. Qiao Xian shared the news with the rest of her family, and they all agreed with the decision. They had experienced and witnessed enough during their stay, and it was time to return home. They reassured themselves that they could always come back in the future. Eldest uncle, in particular, had been longing for home for quite some time. Although he faced opposition from his wife, he couldn't hide his joy as they embarked on the journey back home. Chapter 803, valuable with their departure imminent, they swiftly made preparations. The excessive amount of purchases they made resulted in a substantial amount of luggage to carry. Shao Sanlang and Yang Xiaoni, in particular, had bought an abundance of food, resembling two squirrels with their stash. Qiao, too, had numerous food ingredients, a third of which she discreetly stored in her spatial storage. Among them were various dried seafood items, unknown to those around her. This strategy allowed them to save the trouble of carrying too many things back home. Regarding the fields, Yuezheng Shao's manager had taken care of all the necessary arrangements on Qiao's behalf. All she needed to do was inform the housekeeper of the tasks to be carried out, ensuring everything proceeded according to plan. B0x. Calm. As long as Yuezheng Shao was present, the manager would not dare deceive anyone. With everything settled and their luggage packed, they prepared to depart the following day. Shao Yunduan bid farewell to Xia Jingrong at the Xia family before returning. In his hands, he carried a pot of orchids as a parting gift. Qiao was taken aback by the Xia family's generosity upon realizing that the orchids they had gifted were of the highest quality. Shao Yunduan explained the situation, saying, "The Xia family mentioned that this silver ink orchid is dying, and their florist couldn't revive it. They asked if we could save it." Shao Yunduan didn't consider themselves particularly skilled at planting. At least, he didn't think so. Weren't they just planting the same things as other families? Perhaps it was the quality of the soil that made everything flourish. However, since the orchid appeared to be on the verge of dying and he felt sorry for it, he hesitantly brought it home. Shao Yunduan decided to find a suitable pot to replant the orchid and placed it near the spring in Qiao's garden. The spring's water could moisten the grass and trees, offering a chance for the flower to be saved. Curious, Qiao inquired, "Is this silver ink orchid very valuable?" Shao Yunduan nodded and replied, "It's worth a fortune, equivalent to a significant amount of gold. It's the only one in the entire Xia family." Qiao gasped. The Xia family gave it to them directly rather than try to save it? Typically, most people would try to save a plant as long as there was even the slightest chance of survival, especially when it was a rare specimen. Qiao gratefully accepted the orchid and said with a smile, "Darling, you may not know, but let me take care of it from now on." She intended to use her special abilities to help the orchid thrive, little by little. Shao Yunduan didn't object and reassured her with a smile, "Just take it easy and don't feel pressured." "But if it does manage to survive," Shao Yunduan paused for a moment and suggested, "Should we consider returning it to the Xia family?" Qiao had no objections. She smiled and nodded, saying, "Of course. Our soil is fertile, and it might truly thrive here." With that in mind, she planned to cultivate a new shoot from the orchid and then transfer it to her personal space for further nurturing. The orchids in her personal space were flourishing, producing small shoots that could potentially be brought out and sold for a significant profit once they arrived in the capital. Since valuable items were typically expensive, it was best not to have a large quantity of them. However, Qiao could consider taking a few more orchids with her if she desired. Orchids thrived exceptionally well in her personal space. Carrying the precious orchid with her, Qiao and her family embarked on their journey back home the next morning. Chapter 804. Accompany. The family returned home one day before Madame Qiao and her entourage did. And the once cold house became lively once again. Although Shao Dalong and Ms. Su were not present, they were not forgotten. They received numerous gifts from Ms. Fang, including materials for clothes, needlework supplies, and food and clothing for the children. Qiao and Yang Xiaoni also prepared presents for Ms. Su. Yang Xiaoni gave her a variety of pastries, nuts, and snacks, while Qiao gifted her a set of cosmetics and a pair of beautiful gold hairpins. Tao also contributed by giving her a set of threads and needles. Ms. Su was overjoyed to receive these gifts. Upon their return, Shao Yunduan went to check on the progress of the school construction. B0x. Calm. The land officer and elderly men from the clan were overseeing the construction, and everything was going well. The entire village was pleased to offer their assistance, making it a collaborative effort. Each household actively participated in the work. The school was expected to be completed within 10 to 20 days. Following that, there would be the installation of furniture, hiring of teachers, and all other necessary arrangements. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Li Xia and Li Qiao were fully occupied with making lipsticks. They would create a set whenever a flower bloomed. As the rose flowers gradually diminished, there were fewer osmanthus and chrysanthemums available for making lipsticks. In about 2 weeks, the lipstick production would be temporarily halted. Qiao Xian mentioned that she could provide another set of around 1,000 lipsticks to Yuezheng Shao in the coming days. Additionally, she planned to deliver a batch of snow fungus and mushrooms before the new year. Furthermore, Qiao Xian contemplated hiring people to cultivate the field adjacent to the flower land she intended to purchase. This expansion would allow villagers to sell, rent, and exchange the land. She had no intentions of allocating more space for lipstick production as their current position was already advantageous. Considering their position in the village, this plan should be straightforward. It was evident that if the flower field expanded, her sisters-in-law and maids would not have enough spare hands to manage it. Therefore, Qiao Xian contemplated selecting a few intelligent and dependable girls to assist them. There was no need for Qiao Xian to keep the flower field a secret anymore. She could now hire people from the village to plant flower seeds, remove grass, trim, and extract honey. Her family was strong enough to protect their own lipstick property. Qiao Xian shared this idea with Shao Yunduan, who wholeheartedly agreed. "Let's make all the arrangements before the new year," he suggested. "After the new year, I will be heading to the capital for the examination, and one hope you can accompany me." Shao Yunduan had grown accustomed to having Qiao Xian by his side. It wasn't just about taking care of him, but also providing him with a sense of security. The couple spent their time talking, strolling, and exploring. They enjoyed going sightseeing and shopping together. Shao Yunduan was overjoyed to see Qiao Xian searching for various ingredients and picking out small items, as well as visiting bookstores with him. The thought of going to the capital alone and being separated from her was unbearable for him. Qiao Xian also had her own intentions. She wanted to prevent him from being swayed by others as a son-in-law. She wanted to see if he would remain devoted to her after achieving success. However, this was a natural expectation, a quiet waiting and companionship, rather than intentional tests. Chapter 805, Not test. It wasn't a test, it was giving him a hard time. But presenting her own plan and hearing his proposal were two separate matters. Qiao Xian felt her heart fill with sweetness as she listened to him. She smiled brightly and replied, "Yes, dealing with this matter won't be difficult at all. Third sister-in-law, Tao Tao, Chunyu, and the other girls are skilled at making lipsticks. They can handle the entire task without any problem. Dealing with cassavas was much easier. They only needed to plant them, remove weeds during the harvest, and dry them in the sun before informing Yuezheng Shao to have them collected." In Zhang village, manager Dong and his page boys decided to stay there. Qiao Xian trusted Ding Erzhu and his family to take care of the lands, tea leaves, and creeping figs. Business and lands in the province were easier to manage. The Yuezheng B0XO Com family was providing assistance, so she didn't need to worry about anything. Qiao Xian continued discussing her arrangements, which uplifted Shao Yunduan's spirits. His wife had planned everything. She wanted to go to the capital with him. How wonderful. We can leave much earlier, well ahead of time. There's no need to rush, so we won't get tired. Darling, do you get seasick? We can rent a large ship and travel by sea. Shao Liulang also paid a visit to Shao Yunduan upon hearing of his return. He requested to borrow the study materials that Shao Yunduan used when he was preparing to become a cultivated talent. Shao Yunduan had always kept the materials in good order and well maintained. Initially, he had planned to keep them as souvenirs, but if Shao Liulang wanted to borrow them, he was generous enough to share them. The only condition was that Shao Liulang took good care of them and returned them when he was finished. Shao Liulang nodded and agreed, even expressing his gratitude before leaving. Miss Fang was taken aback by Shao Liulang's reaction. She had expected him to cause a fuss. "Yunduan, what's going on with Liulang? He's acting so strangely," she exclaimed. Qiao Xian couldn't help but suppress her laughter. Eldest uncle wasn't pleased with the comment. "What do you mean?" "Liulang has made a decision to study hard." "What's wrong with that?" "It's a good thing," he said, surprised and pleased by his nephew's behavior. Liulang was incredibly intelligent, and if he applied himself, he would surely succeed in the imperial examination as well. The Shao family would have 2 advanced scholars and recommended men. Miss Fang rolled her eyes and had no interest in arguing with him. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Xiao Lulang's behavior was unusual. Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian exchanged a glance, sensing the same sentiment as Miss Fang. "It's all right, Mom. I believe my cousin must have thought it through. If he wants to work hard, it's a positive thing," Xiao Yunduan reassured her. "Really? Don't worry, Mom. Yes, you're right. It's good to have you here. You're just biased against him. How can you think that way? I have my reasons based on what he has said before. What's wrong with being cautious? You shouldn't be like this. Let's wait and see. The fox may grow gray but never good. We'll see how long he can hold on." The couple engaged in a heated argument. Well, they were free to argue if they wished. Xiao Yunduan had no intention of intervening in his parents' dispute. He held Xiao Xian's hand and said, "Let's go." Xiao Xian smiled and they returned to their own courtyard. "Do you think your cousin is acting strangely?" Chapter 806, Xiao Lulang's experience. Things seem strange because there's something wrong. I don't know what he's planning, but I feel that he still holds a strong hostility towards you, me, and our family. Xiao Xian agreed, nodding. Yeah, that is true. I think you are right. I find him looking really strange, as if he had been stimulated. Stimulated? Xiao Yunduan was perplexed, although he shared Xiao Xian's sentiment. What could have possibly triggered such stimulation? If it was because of the provincial champion title he had earned, but that was a long time ago. B0XO. What else could have gone wrong? The departure of the Zhao family wasn't considered a factor by either of them. Moreover, Xiao Lulang and the Zhao family weren't particularly close. Unaware of Xiao Lulang's misunderstanding of Zhao Ming's intentions, the couple assumed that Xiao Lulang resented them for their involvement in his relationship with Zhao Ming. Let's not dwell on it, Xiao Yunduan said. As long as he keeps his distance from our family, well, leave him be. If he ever dares to harm us again, I'll make sure he regrets it. Xiao Xian felt a sense of relief upon hearing those words and chuckled. That's true. I doubt he would dare to do anything to us with you around. With that, the couple put an end to their discussion. A few days later, Officer Qiao extended an invitation to Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan to visit the mansion once again. The couple readily agreed. They had plans to purchase land from the land agent and also visit the Zhang village to dig up some lotus roots and catch some crabs. The pond in the village contained a different kind of crab compared to the small ones found in the river. These crabs were specially bred and known for their tender flesh. The crabs could be prepared in various ways, such as steamed, fried, or used in dishes like tofu stew and steamed buns. All of them were expected to be incredibly delicious. This time, Qiao Wei, concubine Du, and Qiao Ko were absent. However, Madame Qiao maintained her pleasant and friendly demeanor, wearing a pleasant smile. On the other hand, Officer Qiao seemed less pleased. Madame Qiao was worried that Xiao Xian might reveal what happened at Lingyuan Temple out of anger, so she coughed and redirected the conversation. Xian, we invited you here to discuss the matter of lipsticks. You are the one who makes them, right? Madame Qiao was being straightforward about the lipsticks. It was not a secret anymore since Ms.Mi Jr. had informed her about it. She had every right to bring it up for discussion. What Madame Qiao was unaware of was that Ms.Mi Jr. had not obtained any evidence. Xiao Xian was certain about this, although there wasn't much evidence to begin with. But none of that mattered to Xiao Xian. Whether or not Madame Qiao knew about it was inconsequential. It was better to address it now rather than later, after Xiao Yunduan had left for the capital examination, when things could have gotten worse. Upon hearing this, Officer Qiao interjected, You've been making lipsticks since last year, right? Why didn't you inform us about it? Were you planning to keep it hidden from us forever if your mother hadn't found out? If you had told us, I would have arranged for someone to promote this business and increase the production volume. Madame Qiao spoke gently. Don't be angry, old master. We are also at fault for not asking them about it. If we had inquired, we would have known about it earlier. But it's never too late now, is it? Madame Qiao sneered. She knew how to manipulate her husband with his personality. He wouldn't let go of such a lucrative opportunity. She didn't need to do anything except sit back and watch the drama unfold. Qiao Xian replied, Father, what you don't know is that young Master Yuezheng entered into a deal with us because he trusted my husband. And it was my sister-in-law who discovered the formula, so young Master Yuezheng has been working closely with us. He even hired people to improve the formula. Chapter 807, Not Lying. He is a sincere person and didn't deceive us or keep everything to himself, Qiao Xian explained. The limited production volume is due to the scarcity of raw materials. Young Master Yuezheng doesn't want the source to be revealed, so he has kept it concealed and asked us to do the same. We signed a contract with strict penalties for any breach. That's why we are cautious about spreading the information. Now we have a significant volume of lipsticks, but we can't openly disclose it. Mother, I'm curious, how did you find out about this? County Magistrate Shao was skeptical. Are you telling the truth? Shao Yunduan nodded in agreement. Yes. B0XO. Calm, he would deal with the lies once they returned home. He was frustrated with his father-in-law. He always complained about not sharing things that brought profits, but if they had done so, they would have risked losing everything. County Magistrate Qiao hesitated. Qiao Xian seemed resolute, so he didn't think she was lying. Madame Qiao clenched her teeth in anger. She didn't believe a word that Qiao Xian said. Ms.Mi Jr. wouldn't have lied to her. She was certain that Ms.Mi Jr. must have told the truth about the source of the lipsticks. She had also observed how the first madam had defended Qiao Xian, although she was perplexed about the reason behind it. However, she was confident that even if Qiao Xian had lied to the old master, the Yuezheng family would assist her in maintaining the deception. She couldn't reveal the truth, even though she was aware of what was truly happening. If Qiao Xian had formed an alliance with the Yuezheng family against the old master, it would mean that she had a stronger bond with someone outside the family than with her own father. The old master would not tolerate such a situation and would surely reprimand her for her absurdity. But all of this was because she lacked evidence. Lipsticks are incredibly popular right now, and if you possess the instructions, Mother, Qiao Xian interrupted with a smile. The Shao family sold the instructions to young Master Yuezheng in exchange for money. Otherwise, how do you think we could afford to build a new house with glazed windows? You know very well the value of those windows. The couple. Officer Qiao's anger grew. Why didn't you inform us about this earlier? Indeed, Madame Qiao sighed. But we discovered this and invited you here to share the story. If we hadn't asked, we wouldn't have known anything. Xian, what else have you kept hidden from the old master? He is your father. Officer Qiao snorted in frustration. Those who had lost the enticing prospect of becoming wealthy would naturally become furious, especially in the case of the Qiao family. They had missed the opportunity to obtain the instructions now that they belonged to the Yuezheng family. Shao Yunduan interjected, Mother-in-law, you are mistaken about my wife. She doesn't conceal secrets. Qiao Xian has always been cautious and meticulous, never revealing anything that shouldn't be disclosed unless asked. Officer Qiao glanced at Madame Qiao knowingly. He understood all too well what had made Qiao Xian become such a cautious and guarded person. Madame Qiao found herself at a loss for words, growing increasingly irritated. She sneered and retorted, so it's always your word against mine. I don't need the instructions, but we need the lipsticks as gifts for our acquaintances in the capital. Can you produce them? She added with a tone of superiority, of course, we are willing to pay for them. Chapter 808, Grudge. Qiao Xian inwardly seethed, of course, you expect them for free? How shameless. Qiao Xian was well aware that Madame Qiao had no intention of paying for the goods. She was attempting to take advantage of being Qiao Xian's parents, expecting free items. But if she refused to provide anything in return, what options did they have? Steal from her? Officer Qiao chimed in, these are exquisite and sought-after items. The noble ladies in the capital are knowledgeable and eager for something new. Giving us 300 or 500 units for New Year presents delivered to the capital is nothing, right? Xian, son-in-law, it's just a gift. You can surely produce them, can't you? Officer Qiao always found ways to justify Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan, trying to help them escape from difficult situations. However, there was a limit to his patience. B0XO. He had also heard that the lipsticks were incredibly popular among the ladies in the province, and even noble and wealthy women were craving them. So if they could use them as gifts for their trip to the capital, it would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it? Oh, yes, he suddenly recalled something and added, young Master Yuezheng also has some limited editions, right? Get me 2 sets. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan. Father-in-law, I apologize if it seemed like I was intentionally provoking you. However, the limited versions of the lipsticks have already been reserved by noble ladies. The remaining ones are ordinary ones, and we don't have the authority to sell them. Everything regarding the distribution and contracts is managed by Brother Yuezheng. Qiao Xian smiled, observing her father's pale face. My husband is correct. The Yuezheng family is a prominent business family, and they ensure there are no loopholes for unauthorized access. While we maintain a good relationship with them, we maintain a clear distinction between personal matters and business affairs. Officer Qiao couldn't contain his anger any longer. How dare you, he snapped. You're purposely trying to provoke me. What if I insist on obtaining them no matter what? I'm sorry, father-in-law, but I can't provide them for you. It's already quite cold, and the lipstick production is not suitable during the season. Besides, there won't be many available in any case. You. Officer Qiao was fuming. Madame Qiao chimed in, fueling the conversation in a seemingly gentle manner. Old master, please don't be angry. Xian and our son-in-law are honest individuals who uphold their promises. Officer Qiao's anger intensified. But I am their father and father-in-law. Am I inferior to an outsider? Xian, apologize to your father. You are father and daughter, and we can discuss everything together. Madame Qiao urged, trying to mediate the situation. Madame Qiao turned to Qiao Xian. Officer Qiao sneered. Discussing everything? Bah. Since when would a father need to discuss anything? A daughter should always obey her father's words, or she was considered unruly. Qiao Xian remained composed, unaffected by her father's anger. Whether the couple was putting on a show or genuinely expressing their stance, it didn't matter to her. She simply didn't care. She wished her father would become so angry that he would disown her. She felt that she had nothing to lose and was not afraid of any consequences. Qiao Xian responded firmly, we have already explained the situation to you. We cannot keep any lipsticks, and the few we have are reserved for our immediate family members. It would be completely unfair for us to do otherwise, and we will never engage in such actions. Officer Qiao's anger reached its peak. Fine, girl. You still hold a grudge against us, don't you? Chapter 809, Zhao Xian's accusation. Or, she could simply approach Yuezheng Shao and ask for his agreement. She knew he would undoubtedly support her. In reality, she was merely making excuses to push her father away. She wasn't a dutiful daughter. How dare she behave this way? Officer Qiao was consumed by anger. B0XO. Qiao Xian remained silent. So did Shao Yunduan. Indeed, she harbored resentment towards her father. So what? Wasn't she entitled to feel that way? Officer Qiao was both taken aback and infuriated. You truly are an ungrateful daughter. Apologize, father. Mother never taught me how to be a filial daughter, so I have no understanding of it. You should comprehend that, shouldn't you? Qiao Xian, what are you saying? Madame Qiao was seething with rage and embarrassment. Qiao Xian looked up, her expression cold, as she addressed her. You know perfectly well what I'm referring to. Mother once said that my mother seduced you, father, and how fortunate it was that she died young. Otherwise, mother would have made sure she suffered until her dying breath. You suggested that I should bear the suffering that was intended for my own mother. Enough. Silence. Madame Qiao snapped back, her voice filled with anger. You're lying. If it weren't for my generosity, you wouldn't have enjoyed a comfortable upbringing. You are nothing but a concubine's daughter. So you admit it. You did say that I should suffer and not be allowed an easy death. Why don't you own up to your words? My maid served you faithfully and never heeded my requests. I had to do everything myself. No one assisted me with bathing water. I was given tasteless and inferior food, worse than what was given to the maids and aunts. I was served cold and spoiled dishes in both winter and summer, and I was never provided with proper clothing. Whenever you were displeased with me, you and Xiao Wei took out your frustrations on me. Nonsense. Madame Qiao's voice grew hoarse. These are outrageous claims. Where is the evidence? Or are you simply fabricating lies? You will be punished for spreading falsehoods about your biological mother. Qiao Xian sneered. Evidence? Mother, you are the mistress of the Qiao mansion. Which evidence and which auntie would dare to step forward and defend me? It's a rather astute question you're posing. That's enough. Officer Qiao's realization hit him hard. He knew that Xiao Xian had been living a miserable life under their roof, but she was just a timid and insignificant concubine's daughter. Her presence had no bearing on their lives, so he had chosen to ignore her completely, thinking it wouldn't do them any harm. He couldn't possibly jeopardize his marriage for the sake of a concubine's daughter, could he? But he never expected that his legal wife had subjected his concubine's daughter to such torment, resulting in her deep-seated resentment towards them. Yet, despite the shock and fury he felt, he found himself blaming his concubine's daughter more than anything else. How foolish she was. She could have confided in him about her grievances. Instead, she kept everything bottled up, only to plan her revenge. And why bring up all of this now, right in front of his son-in-law? In this moment, he still felt compelled to defend his legal wife. Her reputation was intertwined with his own, after all. Girl, your mother couldn't have been such a malicious woman. There must have been some misunderstanding between you. The maids and the aunties must have acted on their accord. But your mother and I failed to consider that without your mother's presence, you would become a target for bullying. It was our fault. But it's also your fault, too. You should have confided in us, and your mother and I would have stood up for you. Chapter 8:10, Lying Furious. Qiao Xian couldn't believe how shameless and unreasonable her parents were becoming. They were twisting the truth and trying to appear reasonable even though they were clearly in the wrong. Shao Yunduan was both surprised and enraged. He never expected that Qiao Xian had endured such a terrible life before they got married. The thought of his beloved wife being bullied and humiliated without the means to fight back broke his heart. Officer father-in-law, Shao Yunduan said with a cold tone, "My wife was subjected to bullying and humiliation, and yet you still blame her for it? If you had truly cared for her, you would have known everything that she went through. Or perhaps you did know, but you allowed it to happen. Servants follow the orders of their masters and mistresses. If you had truly defended my wife, those maids and aunties would never have dared to mistreat her. Or are you suggesting that they had more authority than you in your own household? My wife couldn't have dared to speak up when no one was on her side. She wouldn't have survived until now." B0XO. Calm, officer father-in-law, why are you trying to deceive yourself? Officer Qiao gasped, his eyes widening in realization. He had so much to say in response to Shao Yunduan, but Shao Yunduan's composed demeanor made him feel overwhelming guilt. He could have continued deceiving himself, but he couldn't convince those who saw through his actions with clarity. What right did he have to argue back? Furious and filled with regret, Madame Qiao glared at Qiao Xian. What had compelled her to arrange Qiao Xian's marriage in the first place? She should have eliminated Qiao Xian, so no one would ever bother her again. Girl, you are utterly heartless. I am your lineal mother. Yes, I have made mistakes, but you have turned out fine, haven't you? You can't just cast me aside. As a daughter, it is your duty to respect and assist your parents. It's only reasonable. You can't deny this. Even the emperor emphasizes filial piety, as do scholars. Those lacking filial virtue will never achieve any significant position. Agreeing with his wife, Officer Qiao nodded fervently. Absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Madame Qiao sneered and continued, furthermore, if it weren't for me, you would have never married Shao Yunduan. You were initially betrothed to County Magistrate Yang Jiandong in Lin County before the marriage arrangement with Shao Yunduan came about. If you had married him, you wouldn't be standing here today. Madame Qiao attempted to use the truth as a weapon to provoke disgust in them. Qiao Xian had never met her former fiancé, but there was indeed a man to whom she had been promised. Shao Yunduan couldn't help but feel a pang of distress upon hearing this revelation. After all, Qiao Xian had been coerced into marrying him, while the other man held the esteemed position of county magistrate and had achieved a high rank in the imperial examination, ranking third. The disparity in their social status was considerable. Naturally, people would assume that Qiao Xian wasn't particularly pleased about having her engagement forcefully broken and being compelled to marry someone else. Any man in Shao Yunduan's position would feel somewhat displeased with this history. However, what Madame Qiao was unaware of was that Qiao Xian not only harbored reluctance towards her current husband but had even attempted to take her own life in the bridal chamber. Although this tragic event stemmed from the experiences of the original host, the present Qiao Xian had to bear the consequences nonetheless. Chapter 8:11, helping Qiao Xian and Xiao Xian was concerned that this revelation would make Shao Yunduan uncomfortable. Therefore, when Xiao Xian confronted Madame Qiao, she deliberately omitted mentioning the previous marriage alliance or Madame Qiao's attempt to have her killed, which Shao Yunduan had bravely foiled. However, to Qiao Xian's astonishment, Madame Qiao brought up the topic in a distasteful manner. Qiao Xian inwardly cursed her, considering her a despicable woman. She was about to respond when Shao Yunduan interjected, "My wife chose to marry me because it was our destiny to be together. We were meant to be together, and I consider myself fortunate to have her. Our family is blessed to have her. B0XO. I was nothing more than a low-ranking cultivated talent, while my wife's previous fiancé held the esteemed position of county magistrate. There was a significant disparity between us. Madame Qiao, did you truly marry off my wife to me for her own benefit?" Madame Qiao's eyes were widened. She had a plethora of schemes running through her mind, but she was left dumbfounded by this question. Could Shao Yunduan be so foolish as to degrade himself just to defend Xiao Xian? Xiao Xian was deeply touched. She looked at Shao Yunduan with overwhelming emotions, and he responded with a gentle smile, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Internally, Xiao Xian was screaming with delight. She fought the urge to throw herself into his arms right then and there. Her husband was incredibly kind. He was standing up for her and making her feel immensely proud. She longed to flaunt this to the despicable couple before her. Xiao Xian felt that if she could boast in that moment, she would look down on the couple with her chin held high in the sky. County Magistrate Qiao was also taken aback by Madame Qiao's mention of this embarrassing incident. Feeling displeased, he coughed and calmly interjected, We need not discuss this matter right now." He aimed to win Shao Yunduan over to his side, so he genuinely didn't want to delve into the topic of Qiao Xian's previous engagement. Qiao Xian chimed in, "Why not?" Madame Qiao started it. "My husband is absolutely right. We are destined to be together, according to the will of heaven. Madame Qiao, you have no part in this." Or, "Why did my husband happen to rescue me when I was pushed into the water and on the verge of death?" She saw no reason to evade the truth when her husband was fine with it. What? Both Shao Yunduan and County Magistrate Qiao's faces changed simultaneously. Evidently, neither of them had prior knowledge of this incident. Madame Qiao was taken aback. She retorted, "Stop talking nonsense." Nonsense? I wasn't a mere child. Why would I suddenly fall into the water? I know very well whether I was pushed or not. Moreover, I never explicitly accused Madame Qiao of being involved. Why are you getting so defensive now? Madame Qiao stuttered, I just find it utterly ridiculous. But you're insinuating that it was me, aren't you? But it seems like you're making a confession. Shao Yunduan's anger and heartache grew stronger. He sneered, Officer father-in-law, do you really think my wife would falsely confess to something like this? County Magistrate Shao forced himself to respond, wasn't it just an accident? Perhaps Xian is mistaken. Ignoring his weak answer, Shao Yunduan pressed on. Let me take a guess. During that time, my wife's previous fiancé and his family came to discuss the marriage. Someone didn't want her to marry into a respectable family, so they orchestrated an incident like this. Isn't that right? No, that's impossible, County Magistrate Xiao stuttered, realizing that his own denial was feeble. Shao Yunduan was correct. The Yang family had indeed come to discuss the wedding at that time. Chapter 8:12. Not part of the Qiao family, but Xiao Xian's innocence had been tarnished due to her connection with the man who rescued her from the water. County Magistrate Xiao grew furious and blamed Xiao Xian for bringing trouble to the family. As he reflected on the situation, even County Magistrate Xiao couldn't shake the feeling that it all seemed too coincidental. He even began to suspect that his wife might have been involved in orchestrating these events. Furious, County Magistrate Xiao shot a cold glare at Madame Qiao. Qiao Xian spoke calmly, Madame Qiao accuses me of being unfilial. But I would like to ask, what have I done to deserve such a label? Did one break any contracts? Did I steal from my in-laws' family to benefit my own family? County Magistrate Xiao and Madame Qiao were both taken aback by her words. Indeed, their actions had been forcing Qiao Xian to steal from her in-laws' family to help her own. Qiao Xian had been unwilling to comply, and she could not be considered unfilial. B0XO. Calm, the realization struck them both. It was Shao Yunduan who stood before them, witnessing everything. Forcing Qiao Xian to engage in such behavior right in front of her husband suddenly seemed incredibly wrong. Qiao Xian felt a strong sense of displeasure. She was a married daughter, spending time with her in-laws' family. As long as she didn't disrespect or mistreat County Magistrate Qiao and his wife, she should never be labeled as unfilial. After all, Qiao Xian, as a married daughter, was not bound by the fate of her family's exile and imprisonment. She was no longer a member of the Qiao family, and the notion of manipulating her with the concept of filial piety seemed absurd. Shao Yunduan sneered with disdain, firmly holding Qiao Xian's hand. Darling, let's go. Officer father-in-law, unless you provide a clear explanation of the injustice my wife has endured, we will not attend any further summons from you. Qiao Xian chimed in, Father, be cautious of your wife. She is capable of deceit and treachery. With those words, the couple departed, arm in arm. Madame Qiao and County Magistrate Qiao were left in a state of shock, unable to utter a word. Suddenly, a loud bang broke the silence, jolting Madame Qiao from her daze. County Magistrate Qiao glared at her coldly, his voice filled with accusation. Is what she said true? But he couldn't bring himself to utter the words. His legal wife had attempted to harm his daughter, regardless of her status as a concubine's daughter. She was still his daughter. No, old master, please. Madame Qiao pleaded, sounding as if she had been unjustly accused. Qiao Xian set me up. She was trying to sow discord between us. Old master, don't fall for her ploy. She's trying to divert your attention from our demands. County Magistrate Qiao was caught in a whirlwind of confusion. He couldn't help but find his legal wife's words somewhat reasonable. Qiao Xian's accusation seemed like a diversion to avoid discussing their demands. But you must be aware of how you have treated her. Madame Qiao wiped away her tears. Old master, she is merely the daughter of a concubine, a product of the woman who betrayed me by sleeping with you. Old master, one too have emotions. How could I ever develop any fondness for her after what happened? But I have never mistreated her. I provided her with food, clothing, and daily necessities. While she might not have felt particularly well treated, the truth is, if I truly harbored such hatred towards her, I would have put an end to her existence long ago. As for how she ended up in the water. Chapter 8:13, Shao Yunduan's attitude, she's lying. One have never done anything of the sort. Madame Qiao vehemently denied the accusations. While she could acknowledge that a lineal mother might not hold affection for a concubine's daughter, she refused to accept responsibility for any attempt on Xiao Xian's life. County Magistrate Qiao found himself growing increasingly perplexed by his wife's words. He sensed that she was not lying, but Xiao Xian appeared resolute in her claims. He found himself torn between whom to believe. However, his growing aversion towards his wife was becoming undeniable. Old master, I understand that I cannot alleviate your suspicions, and one won't defend myself any further. But Xiao Xian firmly believes that I have done this to her, and she will harbor resentment. She won't show us any respect, including you. She might even grow to hate you. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm County Magistrate Xiao's expression stiffened. He had no interest in her demeanor. He needed Shao Yunduan's stance. And Shao Yunduan had already made his position clear. County Magistrate Qiao couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. It's all your fault. Madame Qiao lowered her head, concealing her inner sneer. She was well aware of the deep grudge Xiao Xian held against her. She had always believed that Xiao Xian was easily manipulated, and she had been confident in her ability to control her. Madame Qiao's anger grew as she realized that Xiao Xian had been deceiving her all along, putting up a facade. She felt a deep sense of betrayal and vowed to view Xiao Xian as her enemy from now on. Old master, it seems that Xian has developed a deep-seated misunderstanding of me, and it will be difficult to dispel it. However, if Shao Yunduan continues to rise in his career, County Magistrate Qiao let out an angry snort. His head throbbed with pain. Shao Yunduan had achieved the title of provincial champion, and it was not something that could be easily revoked. Attempting to remove his title could potentially ruin County Magistrate Qiao's own career. He dared not take such a risk. I am his father-in-law. He wouldn't dare defy me unless he wants to jeopardize his own career. But he won't take your side, ever. That's your fault. I have an idea. Would you like to hear it? Spill it out now. Old master, what if we find a stunningly beautiful, talented, and charming young woman and present her to Shao Yunduan as a gift? Xiao Xian shouldn't be the only one standing by Shao Yunduan's side. If they could have a spy working for them, close to Shao Yunduan, it would be a great advantage. Though it was despicable to manipulate someone to steal their own daughter's husband, the couple seemed to have no qualms about it. Officer Qiao was somewhat convinced. Where can we find such a person? I can tell that Shao Yunduan is not attracted to ordinary women. If they could find a girl who possessed both gentleness and beauty, along with talent, scholars like Shao Yunduan would find it hard to resist such charms. People in power often sought to have beautiful women by their side to enhance their image and status. Madame Qiao smirked. If you trust me, I can take care of that. Officer Qiao had no other choice but to rely on her. He gave a cautious glance to Madame Qiao and whispered, keep this a secret. No one, including Wei and concubine Du, should be aware of our plans. Chapter 8:14, Trap again, of course, old master. Please don't worry. He didn't consider it to be his fault. This stubborn girl had left him with no choice but to devise this plan. Fortunately, the girl wouldn't be adversely affected since her only task was to confront a concubine. Once she realized her mistake and turned to him, begging for forgiveness, he could then step forward and assume the role of her father. County Magistrate Qiao found solace in this thought, feeling slightly relieved. Updated on B0xN0VL. Calm, he simply couldn't bear to give up on a promising son-in-law like Shao Yunduan, even if it meant causing his daughter some trouble. County Magistrate Qiao's determination was unwavering, so he turned to Madame Qiao and inquired, where do you propose we find a girl suitable for this task? Madame Qiao smiled, responding, it won't be difficult. With sufficient funds, we can easily find someone suitable. There should be eligible candidates within the province, and I can arrange for a girl to be transferred from elsewhere if necessary. That increased County Magistrate Qiao's confidence even further. He nodded firmly in agreement. Good. They had ample funds for this. Madame Qiao wasted no time in formulating the plan. She intended to seek assistance from Ms.Mi Jr., certain that she would be willing to help. Second, Mrs. Yuezheng possessed the means to make it happen effortlessly. She would even attempt to persuade Ms.Mi Jr. to avoid shouldering any expenses herself. However, second Mrs. Yuezheng decided not to disclose this to her old master, as she could secure a portion of money from him as her personal savings. As they left the mansion, Shao Yunduan called out to his wife, his face filled with sadness. Qiao Xian's heart warmed, and she gently placed her fingers on his lips, smiling. Darling, please don't make me out to be so pitiful. I don't want to hear any of that. It's all in the past. Furthermore, she hadn't suffered any harm. It was the original host who had endured it all, and she didn't deserve their sympathy. Shao Yunduan smiled, appreciating his wife's open-mindedness. Okay, let's not dwell on it, he nodded, speaking softly. It's all behind us now, and it will never happen again. Yes, unless you treat me the same way, she teased playfully. Don't. I promise I won't treat you like that, Shao Yunduan interjected, gently covering her lips with his fingers. I will only treat you well. Qiao Xian gazed up at her husband, noticing the slight redness in his ears, a sign of his guilt. He avoided her gaze, pretending everything was normal. A bright smile graced Qiao Xian's face. One know you're the best. Shao Yunduan responded softly, his cheeks flushing with a thin layer of redness. His handsome face revealed his touched emotions. As the sound of joyful laughter reached Shao Yunduan's ears, he felt a tinge of shyness. His wife's laughter indicated that she genuinely didn't mind what had happened before. Are you heading to the land agent? Qiao Xian asked. Of course. Shao Yunduan replied. Nothing would deter them, not even Officer Qiao and his wife. Let's go, then. Together, the couple made their way to the land agent, clearly communicating their requirements. The land agent assured them confidently that he would ensure a smooth process. They instructed him to visit the village in 3 days' time. Only foolish individuals would pass up the opportunity to work for a generous provincial champion. Afterward, the couple paid a visit to Manager Qin at Mingrentang and engaged in a brief conversation. They requested that Manager Qin gather the ripe medicinal herbs the following afternoon, and Manager Qin agreed to their request. Chapter 8:15. Going home. Manager Qin inspected the ginseng and was impressed by their high quality. He also noticed some Panax noto ginseng, which should be harvested next year. The potential earnings from these herbs amounted to approximately 10,000 liang. Manager Qin attempted to persuade them to expand their operation, and Qiao Xian agreed in principle. However, they faced a challenge as they lacked additional staff to facilitate such an expansion. Furthermore, their plans to visit the capital in spring caused them to hesitate in scaling up their business. Manager Qin found this situation quite regrettable. After bidding farewell to Manager Qin, they proceeded to purchase meat. Qiao Xian intended to cook dinner in the evening. Updated on B0xN0VL. They wanted to have a small celebration following their encounter with Officer Qiao. It called for a special occasion. Fortunately, they managed to acquire beef. Beef was both expensive and rare in the market, making it a highly sought-after meat. Several restaurants had already purchased half of the stock, but Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan were fortunate enough to arrive early at the stall, otherwise, they would have been left with nothing. Since beef could be stored for a few days without spoiling, Qiao Shisan bought over 15 kilograms of meat, including sirloin, brisket, tendon, and breast. We have various spices at home. The tendon meat can be used for stew, the beef brisket and breast can be braised in brown sauce or stewed with radishes and tomatoes, and the sirloin can be enjoyed in a hot pot or stir-fried. Let's have a beef hot pot tonight. And why not make some beef balls as well? They decided to proceed to thinly slice the beef, preparing it for the hot pot by blanching it in a spicy or clear soup for a few seconds. The result would be tender and flavorful meat that would make anyone's mouth water. As for the beef balls, they had a delightful bouncy texture with a smooth consistency. These chewy delicacies were perfect for the hot pot, adding to the anticipation of the meal. The mere thought of the flavorsome feast caused their mouths to water with anticipation. Shao Yunduan wholeheartedly agreed with Qiao Xian's excited suggestion, as they hadn't enjoyed hot pot in a while and were truly craving it. They also purchased a few pork bones and a piece of plum blossom meat. The pork bones were boiled to create a flavorful soup base for the hot pot. They chopped the plum blossom meat, mixed it with lotus root paste, shaped it into lotus root balls, fried them in a pan, and planned to serve them alongside the hot pot. Considering their dinner plans, they decided to postpone their visit to Zhang village. They could make the trip in a few days' time. Back at home, Yang Xiaoni, Shao Sanlang, Tao Tao, and Qi were all thrilled to hear about the hot pot dinner. They eagerly got busy with preparations, adding to the excitement and anticipation in the household. Preparing the beef balls required beating the beef into a meat paste, a task that demanded arm strength and endurance. Although they had done it before, this time it was Qi's responsibility. Interestingly, Shao Sanlang volunteered to take on the task, assuming he could handle the physical demands. However, he quickly grew exhausted, unable to lift his arms. Qi couldn't help but laugh at his brother's predicament and effortlessly completed the job, surprising everyone present. Poor Shao Sanlang, he even trembled as he tried to pick up food with his chopsticks during dinner. He didn't make any further offers to help, unable to tolerate his shivering arms while attempting to eat. The hot pot dinner featured a wide array of dishes. There were beef balls, lotus root balls, fish balls, beef slices, squid, shrimp paste, egg dumplings, vermicelli, yuba, fried bean curd, shiitake mushrooms, lettuce slices, winter melon slices, yam slices, lettuce, wolfberry sprouts, and more. Additionally, they had fresh fire dragon fruits, oranges, and grapes. The tender and delicious beef brought immense joy as they savored this rare and delightful dinner together. Chapter 8:16, Compensation. The following day, with the assistance of Chunyu and the maids, the plant harvesting was swiftly completed within half a day. In the afternoon, Manager Qin personally arrived to collect the medicinal materials. As he didn't have sufficient cash on hand, he had to arrange for the funds from the province. To acknowledge his debt, he wrote an IOU note for Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian happily accepted the note, showing no concern over the matter. This marked Manager Qin's first visit to Qiao Xian's garden, and as he walked through, he couldn't help but be astonished and feel a tinge of envy. He couldn't help but praise what he witnessed, noting the abundance of snow fungus, sugarcane, pineapples, papayas, grapes, pears, lemons, pomegranates, and various other fruits. He even emphasized his desire for a few more bergamots and expressed his anticipation for the upcoming harvest season. Qiao Xian responded cheerfully, feeling a hint of guilt. She realized she had forgotten to share fruits with Manager Qin during her last visit to town. Updated on B0xN0VL. They had hired 10 individuals to work on opening up the 20 mu of barren land. Each worker received a daily wage of 35 won. Opening up the barren land was no easy task. Firstly, they had to clear away all the weeds, shrubs, and miscellaneous trees that occupied the area. Most importantly, the roots of these trees and shrubs needed to be eradicated, which proved to be a challenging endeavor. The area was thoroughly cleaned before they began the process of opening up the land. Fortunately, it wasn't a busy farming season, so Qiao Xian and her family were content to follow the lead rather than feeling rushed. It became apparent that the initial 20 mu of land was not sufficient for their purposes. The lipstick business couldn't remain a secret, so they decided to increase production, along with the cultivation of cassavas. Qiao Xian estimated that 500 mu would be an appropriate size, as exceeding that would exceed her management capabilities. The additional fields would be connected to the existing floral fields, allowing for better management on a larger scale. With 200 mu already assigned to others, the remaining 500 mu would significantly enrich their land. Qiao Xian sought the company of her mother-in-law and gathered 16 families together to discuss the acquisition of the land, with assistance from the land officer. It was a small-scale meeting regarding land acquisition compensation. The field itself held little monetary value, and the individual harvests would be limited. By working together, they could ensure a more substantial yield. Qiao Xian didn't say much during the meeting, but she expressed her intentions to the villagers. She desired their land and planned to provide them with abundant compensation in return. At present, the market value for 1 mu of good land stood at 4 liang, while hills and steep terrain were priced at 3 liang. Well-opened land in mu was valued at 5 liang, and excellent land commanded a price of 6 liang. However, the majority of the available lands had already been opened, with only 20 to 30 mu remaining unopened. Therefore, Qiao Xian decided to purchase these lands at the cost of well-opened land, offering 12 liang for 1 mu. The villagers were left astounded by this proposition. What? How much? 12 liang for 1 mu? Did I hear that correctly? No, number 1 also heard it was 12 liang. Is she joking? That's unbelievable. Even well-opened land was not valued this highly. As the confirmation from Qiao Xian resounded through the crowd, the villagers erupted in excitement. Of course, they were more than willing to offer their land. Only foolish individuals would pass up such an opportunity. With 12 liang for 1 mu, they could use the money to purchase unopened land themselves. Chapter 8:17, money they could invest some effort in digging the land, which wouldn't affect future plantings. Even though the soil would regenerate after 2 or 3 years, resulting in an abundance of weeds and wild plants, it didn't matter much. Clearing out the weeds and unwanted growth would suffice. It was simply a matter of putting in some hard work. After 3 years, the land would be ready for sale. By selling the land, they could earn 8 liang for 1 mu, or 80 liang for 10 mu. Those with 20 liang could potentially earn 100 or even 200 mu of land. This was an incredible opportunity to seize within just 2 or 3 years. Some families grew anxious, eager to sell their land. They didn't want to miss out on the opportunity in case Qiao Xian changed her mind before they had a chance to voice their intentions. Update on Biyao. See Omicron. A few astute families inquired, Ms. Fong and Ms. Niece-in-law, what are your plans for buying all this land? Are you aiming to make a fortune? The others were equally curious. Yes, what's the plan? Tell us more about it. Qiao Xian smiled warmly. We're buying the land for our livelihood, of course. We don't squander money. Our goal is to connect the lands together for easier management. If any of you want to sell your land, please go ahead. If not, we can also acquire land from elsewhere. Operating them separately won't be a major issue. How we conduct the business is a secret. Even if we were to reveal our plans to you, it wouldn't guarantee your fortune. I'll offer a high price because we are all fellow villagers. It's a form of compensation. There's no need to rush. Take 2 days to think it over, and then give me your decision. But remember, the offer is only valid for 2 days, Qiao Xian emphasized. You can choose to sell now, but once the deal is done, there's no turning back. We don't want any complications that could hinder our project's progress, she cautioned. After Qiao Xian's speech, people started engaging in lively discussions. 7 or 8 families made the deal on the spot, while others mentioned they would discuss it within their own families and provide an answer the following day. Qiao Xian agreed happily to their approach. The families who reached an agreement with Qiao Xian proceeded to write up the contracts, received their payments, and returned home with smiles on their faces. One family, for example, sold 23 mu of land, with 6 of them being unopened. They earned a total of 276 liang. With the ability to purchase 20 mu of unopened land for 80 liang, they could make a pure profit of 200 liang. This significant increase in income would greatly improve their quality of life. The sight of money exchanging hands excited the others, leading 4 more families to sell their land. However, there were still some villagers who remained hesitant. They expressed their intention to make a decision after a few days. Qiao Xian reassured them that it was perfectly fine. After finalizing the deals, Qiao Xian returned home with Ms. Fang, clutching the contracts in her hands. Ms. Fang couldn't help but express her frustration, saying, "Why are they hesitating? It's so annoying and troublesome. We don't engage in deceit, especially when it comes to money. We're buying these fields to make a fortune, something they can't even dream of achieving. And there's nothing they can do about it either." Chapter 8:18, Rights of Choice. Qiao Xian smiled and replied, "Let them take their time to think it over. It's only a couple of days. I'm not one to wait around either. Besides, they wouldn't figure out a better means of making a living anyway." Nis. Fang chuckled and agreed, saying, "That's very true." Deep down, she knew that her daughter-in-law had bought the land to cultivate flowers and trees, keep bees, and continue producing lipsticks. She had no intention of letting others in on her secret. They couldn't possibly replicate the lipstick-making process. It was time for them to stop dreaming. With the earnings from the land sales, they could build a new house and acquire additional fields for storage purposes. Everything would turn out well. What was the use of prying into Qiao Xian's plans for the money? Update on B-Omicron-X0VL. C-Omicron-M. Everyone agreed that nothing in the world came for free. Qiao Xian was offering such a high price not because the buyers were fellow villagers, but because there must be a more significant fortune behind her actions. They couldn't afford to miss out on such an opportunity. And they were right. Qiao Xian wasn't simply giving away money. She was genuinely trying to help the villagers, and her flower and lipstick business would easily recoup the investment. She didn't mind spending that much for their benefit. The choice was simple and clear-cut. It was up to each individual to determine whether they found it worthwhile. If they believed they had the means to sell the land at a higher price on their own and felt confident about their fortune, they were free to do so. They didn't need to concern themselves with what others were doing. Their main objective was to earn money, wasn't it? On the other hand, if they didn't think selling the land would fetch them a substantial sum, they could choose to forego the opportunity. Ultimately, the decision was theirs to make. Those who had their own ideas refrained from prying into the matter with the first group of families. They understood that they wouldn't gain any information from them, so they approached other families instead. They believed that those families might have some knowledge about the situation. However, to their surprise, neither of the other families knew anything about the first group of families purchasing land. They were equally perplexed as to why the land was bought from outsiders rather than within their own families. "No, I must speak with them." Ms.Mi was unable to tolerate the situation and was ready to confront the first group of families instead of entertaining questions from outsiders. However, Ms. Yan immediately intervened and stopped her. With a smile, she dismissed those who were prying, saying, "Mom, don't think we need to delve into this matter. They purchased fields that are adjacent to their own. Since our fields are not available, they didn't approach us. That must be the reason why they excluded us." But Ms.Mi was not convinced by this explanation. She added, Don't care. They bought fields, and that's all there is to it. I'm starting to believe that they deliberately avoided buying our fields." Confused by her mother-in-law's widened eyes, Ms. Yan let out a perplexed sound. "What?" Ms.Mi continued, "Do you think they refused to buy our fields so that they could acquire the ones that are interconnected?" Chapter 8:19, Reasoning. Ms. Yan. "Honestly," Ms.Mi exclaimed, "why do they have to buy connected fields? Can't they just buy separate ones? I must reason with them." Seeing that some families earned hundreds of liang by selling their fields, with some even earning 200 liang, Ms.Mi couldn't help but feel jealous and bitter. "Mom," Ms. Yan inwardly complained and intervened, stopping her. "Mom, the first group of families has their own reasons for buying connected fields, and that's their business. Even if you try to talk to them, they won't change their minds, right? Elder aunt and fifth sister-in-law are both independent-minded individuals. They don't easily alter their decisions. Don't ruin the improved relationship between us." Update on B-Omicron-X0VL. C-Omicron-M, it's simply not worth it, is it? Ms.Mi stiffened, contemplating her daughter-in-law's words. She didn't care much about the improved relationship, which didn't concern her as much. However, one thing Ms. Yan said struck a chord in her mind. Ms. Fong and Xiao Xian were both strong-willed individuals who never swayed in their beliefs. Ms. Niu couldn't convince Ms. Fong or out-argue her. It would only lead to her own frustration. Never mind. Ms. Niu suddenly felt annoyed. I'll let it go. They should be grateful that I'm not causing them any trouble. Ms. Niu still felt a lingering irritation as if she had lost something significant. Ms. Yan's lips twitched, silently relieved that she had managed to stop her. That was a close call. To appease Ms. Niu, Ms. Yan expressed her respect and admiration, even offering her some of her own savings. This gesture made Ms. Niu beam with delight, thanking Ms. Yan for her profound respect. Ms. Yan couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction upon hearing those words. She had accumulated a substantial amount of private savings, earning dozens of liang each month. Giving a portion of it to her mother-in-law was well within her means. Just as Ms. Niu was being pampered, Ms.Mi arrived. Ms.Mi shared the same idea as Ms. Niu, intending to rally her support and confront the first group of families together. Ms. Yan inwardly cursed. Her third aunt-in-law was truly wicked. She could create a commotion all by herself and then drag her mother-in-law into it. She never did anything beneficial for Ms. Niu either. However, before Ms. Yan could say anything, Ms. Niu declined the offer, refusing to participate. Ms. Niu had just received money from Ms. Yan, and she couldn't directly humiliate her daughter-in-law. Instead, she informed Ms.Mi that she would pass on the opportunity. Ms.Mi was utterly surprised. This amounted to hundreds of liang. She was about to persist in her persuasion when Ms. Yan deflected the conversation, diverting Ms.Mi's attention elsewhere. Annoyed, Ms.Mi cursed at Ms. Yan and branded Ms. Niu as a coward. Fine, she would go and reason with them herself. The outcome was entirely predictable. Returning home, Ms.Mi felt even more irritated. She firmly believed that the first group of families was buying others' fields to avoid sharing profits with them. Shao Liulang furrowed his brow, expressing disdain. Mom, stop engaging with them. Why bother getting close to the first group of families? Don't worry, Mom, I'll surpass Shao Yunduan, I guarantee it. Remember, never approach the first group of families again. What? Ms.Mi was about to defend herself, but Shao Liulang's cold and impatient expression startled her. Okay, Liulang, whatever you say. Chapter 820, Money-Making. Shao Liulang retreated to his room, his impatience dissipating. Ms.Mi let out a sigh of relief. She noticed that her son had become increasingly irritable lately, always wearing a cold expression. She dared not provoke him or defy his words. But she also observed that he seemed more motivated and dedicated than before. Perhaps it was because he had been working so hard that he was too exhausted to maintain a cheerful demeanor. Update on Biyao X0VL. C she had advised him not to overwork himself and to take some time to relax. However, he ignored her and told her to stop nagging. So she refrained from saying anything further. Her only wish was for him to achieve success as a cultivated talent in the future. Visitors frequently approached the first group of families in the Shao family, offering to sell their fields. Only foolish individuals would reject such a lucrative deal or hesitate to sell their fields. It was an expedient way to earn money. Who would refuse such an opportunity? Even the neighboring villagers grew curious. Some couldn't help but feel envious that they were unable to sell their own fields. Of course, there were exceptions. 2 families, owning a total of 30 mu, deliberated and ultimately declined to sell their fields. They were convinced that the first group of families in the Shao family possessed inside information that allowed them to purchase seemingly worthless fields at such a high price. But they viewed the first group as deceitful and self-centered, unwilling to share their knowledge with others. Determined to take a risk, they chose to retain their fields. They believed that they might soon sell them for thousands of liang, earning many times more than they could currently. Not only did they decide not to sell their fields, but they also attempted to convince others to follow suit. They sought to form a united front and pressure the Shao family into revealing the true value of the fields. However, all the other families unequivocally rejected their proposition. They had no hesitation in doing so. Those families were not in dire need of such a large sum of money, unlike the less fortunate families. To them, earning 100 or 200 liang was already a substantial amount. As for any peculiar or supernatural aspects related to the fields, well, if they could make money from it, it would be attributed to the good fortune and talent of Shao Yunduan, the provincial champion. If they were able to generate wealth from these circumstances, it would be considered their good luck and they would deserve it. By selling their fields, they aimed to avoid succumbing to greed. 100 or 200 liang would already bring significant improvements to their families' lives. The villagers who couldn't sell their fields couldn't help but feel envious of those who did. Why sell the fields? Only foolish people would sell. The two foolish families felt irritated upon hearing those remarks. They whispered among themselves, let them make their profits. But they will surely regret it. Yes, something must be amiss. Let's hold on to the fields and make our own fortune. The two families made up their minds to retain their fields and follow the Shao family's example by pursuing the same business venture. Qiao Xian did not pressure them to sell if they didn't want to. After 2 days, even if they changed their minds and wished to sell, she wouldn't purchase their fields. She wasn't desperate for more fields, but she couldn't go back on her word. Qiao Xian made the decision to acquire an additional 520 mu of land to connect with the existing ones, bringing the total to 600 mu. Chapter 821, Feeling of disappointment. They could easily bypass the 30 mu of land. Without it, they could purchase several dozen more mu to open up new fields. The land agent swiftly arrived and handled all the necessary arrangements. Qiao Xian wasted no time in hiring 40 workers, and the project commenced promptly. The vast expanse of over 300 mu was a neglected wasteland, overrun with weeds, shrubs, and various trees. The first task at hand was to clear the ground. However, Qiao Xian specifically instructed the workers not to remove the well-preserved large trees scattered throughout the area. These trees added a unique and picturesque touch to the landscape and provided much-needed shade for rest breaks when the workers grew tired. All the land was now connected into a single plot, requiring resegmentation. Some areas needed filling, while others needed excavation and leveling. A network of small roads needed to be crisscrossed, with accompanying ditches along the way. Update on Biyao X0VL. See M. It was indeed a monumental undertaking. Fortunately, it was late autumn and early winter, and the crops from the surrounding fields had already been harvested. This spared them the task of clearing away any vegetation, allowing them to focus on working with the natural terrain. Those who had sold their land wasted no time in using their earnings to purchase new plots of land. The newly acquired land was situated a bit farther from the home village, but the satisfaction of having money in their pockets and new land outweighed any inconvenience. The entire family eagerly ventured out to open up the fields, excited about the prospects it held for the coming spring. No one felt left out, as they all had a role to play in this busy endeavor. The two families who had chosen not to sell their fields couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness in their hearts as they observed the Shao family and other families enthusiastically exploring new lands. Subconsciously, they began to harbor suspicions that the first section of the Shao family had some ulterior motive for their fields, perhaps hoping they would come begging to sell. Yet, Qiao Xian remained true to her word and did not approach them with any offers or inquiries. This surprised and somewhat irritated them. They resorted to spreading rumors, suggesting that the Shao family intended to make a fortune from the fields they had purchased, causing those who had bought the land to regret their decision deeply. Whispered conversations and gossip circulated, casting negative shadows on the Shao family's intentions. Some even shared these tales with Ms. Fang and Qiao Xian. Ms. Fang responded with a scornful sneer, paying no mind to the rumors. Qiao Xian, on the other hand, simply smiled. Those people truly failed to grasp her genuine concern for the well-being of the villagers. It seemed they were adept at creating false narratives and misunderstandings. The majority of the villagers had a clear understanding of the situation. They had received their money by selling their fields to the Shao family. Meanwhile, The two families who had attempted to imitate the Shao family's business model were taken aback when they witnessed Qiao cultivating roses, Chinese roses, pomegranates, osmanthus, lemons, and other flowers, along with a small portion dedicated to cassavas. It dawned on them that Qiao was producing ingredients for making lipsticks. This revelation left them in a state of shock because, despite their efforts, they couldn't manage to produce lipsticks themselves. Filled with deep regret, they implored the elderly members of their families to plead with the Shao family to sell the fields back to them. However, Qiao politely declined their request. She no longer required such a large amount of land for her endeavors. Chapter 822, Popular Qi. Since Qiao no longer needed the fields, it would be unfair to force the buyers to sell them back. This realization left the two families seething with anger, and the two arrogant men in charge became the subject of ridicule and jokes in the village. As the fields underwent development, Shao Dalong and Ms. Fong would frequently visit and inspect them. Meanwhile, Qiao, Qi, and Tao ventured back into the mountains. Qiao still had plans for the valuable tea seeds that were needed to fill the vacant area in Zhang village. She intended to start cultivating the seeds after the new year, allowing them to be transplanted around March. Recalling the abundance of wild lemons in the mountains, Qiao decided to dig them up, stimulate the roots by breaking the branches, and temporarily cultivate them in the garden. In early spring, they could be transplanted to orchards on the outskirts of the province. The lemons and their juice were essential for enhancing the flavors of the drinks served at the dessert stores. Qiao aimed to have at least 30 or 40 mu of lemon orchards. Updated on Biyao. See Omicron. Furthermore, this season marked the return of plump wild animals in the mountains, accompanied by a variety of wild fruits. It was the perfect time to venture into the mountains and gather resources. Qi's hunting skills had improved, and he had grown stronger with a sharper sense, leading to a bountiful harvest for their family. Pheasants, hares, deer, muntjac, grouse, and wild pigeons, which Qiao enjoyed, were harvested almost daily. Although it was more convenient to store the meat during this season, there was still an excess that needed to be addressed, prompting the family to resume making smoked meat. During their hunts, they even encountered wild deer, and Qi managed to bring back 3 fully grown deer to the village, causing jealousy among the villagers. Wild boars were also hunted, as their meat was perfect for smoking. In addition to the game from the mountains, Qiao and her family also acquired many large smoked fish. Their stockpile of smoked meat from the previous year had lasted for almost half a year, attesting to its delicious taste. Whether it was steamed, fried, stewed, made into claypot rice, or used as fillings for other dishes, the flavors were exceptional. The anticipation for the next hunting season grew within the family, keeping them busy with preparations. Meanwhile, the villagers couldn't help but feel envious of Qi's hunting abilities, making him quite popular among them. People from their own village, neighboring villages, and even distant areas approached Ms. Fong and eldest uncle, expressing their interest in arranging marriages for Qi. Some individuals were also interested in Tao. Ms. Fong felt a mix of pride and helplessness in response to the attention Qi and Tao received. She cautioned eldest uncle not to make any promises regarding their marriages at this time. Eldest uncle's expression turned serious as he responded, "It's a matter of great importance, and I don't take such promises lightly. We must approach it with caution and thoroughness." Ms. Fong rolled her eyes and scoffed, "I have my doubts. You tend to change your mind too easily, and I wouldn't put it past you to make promises just to save face." Eldest uncle was displeased by her remark. "That's not true. I'm not that foolish." However, he nearly made a mistake soon after. Ms. Fong approached Shao Yunduan and Qiao, seeking their assistance in arranging marriages for Qi and Tao. The dynamics had shifted. Shao Yunduan's success and Qiao being county magistrate Qiao's daughter, along with their profitable land purchases, had attracted the attention of many villagers. Chapter 823, Dragon Fruits and Papaya Seeds. So, those who sought to form a martial alliance might have ulterior motives. What if they targeted the wrong individuals and deceived them into making promises? This could potentially bring trouble to Qi and Tao in the future, putting the entire family at risk. Ms. Fong was determined not to let this happen. The family was thriving, and her sons and daughters-in-law were all doing well. The peace and harmony within the family were invaluable. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan wholeheartedly agreed to assist in the matter. Mom, don't worry. My wife and One will ensure that everything goes smoothly. When it comes to Qi and Taotao's marriages, we won't focus solely on family background. What truly matters is the character of the individuals, Shao Yunduan reassured. Ms. Fang smiled and sighed with relief. You're absolutely right. Just look at your third sister-in-law. Her family may not have been well off, but she has thrived after marrying into our family. That's what truly counts. Qi and Taotao don't need partners who are highly successful, but they must be reliable and not cause any trouble. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan felt a hint of embarrassment. Qiao Xian chuckled. Niam, it's not that simple. We can't just settle for anyone for Qi and Taotao. We will handle this matter carefully and make sure to find the best matches for them. If someone proposes a marriage now, we will decline. What do you think about waiting until after my husband's spring examination? That way, we'll have enough time to thoroughly evaluate and gather information, suggested Qiao Xian. Ms. Fang was pleased to hear this proposal and nodded in agreement. They shouldn't rush to find suitors now. What if Shao Yunduan becomes the advanced scholar and starts working in the governmental office? Qi and Taotao would have a much broader selection of potential partners then. Xuan arrived with a group of people from the province. Yuezheng Shao's letter informed them that they had obtained many dragon fruits and papaya seeds. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan were invited to visit them and collaborate on this project. Qiao Xian was delighted by the news and made up her mind to visit them. She intended to use her superpower to ensure the safekeeping of the seeds throughout the winter. Concerned for her safety, Shao Yunduan decided to accompany her on the journey. Qiao Xian carefully selected some distinctive fruits from the garden. Although they no longer had pineapples or sugar canes, she gathered a few bananas, dragon fruits, and papayas. The bergamot trees were thriving, producing large and fragrant fruits. They collected a total of 12 bergamots. 6 of them would go to the Xia family, and the remaining 6 to the Yuezheng family. They also obtained fresh ginseng. Coincidentally, Qi had returned from hunting with 2 roe deer and several pheasants. They decided to bring both roe deer and selected 8 pheasants and 8 hares each. They also packed 4 bottles of homemade mushroom sauce, tomato sauce, sesame oil, red oil pickles, and chili sauce. However, they decided to leave behind the unfinished smoked meat. The wagons were now filled with these provisions. Qiao Xian also successfully saved the silver ink orchids from the Yuezheng family. She placed 2 seeds in her special space and planned to bring the original one to the Xia family. Once everything was arranged, they set off with Xuan. As good friends, Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan didn't hide anything from Xuan. They openly discussed their concerns. Qiao Xian inquired about the situation with Yuezheng Ting. It was an event that couldn't be concealed. Numerous people had witnessed or heard about it, and no one could erase that memory. Chapter 824. Future Xuan was filled with excitement when he was asked about the situation. Instead of merely expressing his excitement, he began to mock and ridicule the second section of the family. The strained relationship between the 2 sections had always been evident, with Ms.Mi Jr. frequently bullying Xuan and the servants. Therefore, when the second section of the family encountered trouble, Xuan eagerly seized the opportunity to mock them. In light of these circumstances, Xuan and the others became more inclined to align themselves with Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan. After Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan left the province, Madame Qiao, her daughter, and concubine Du also departed soon after. Subsequently, rumors about what had transpired involving Yuezheng Ting began to circulate. Although Qiao Wei was involved, very few people discussed it, and numerous versions of the rumors regarding Yuezheng Ting's situation emerged. Soon enough, her reputation plummeted to the lowest point, subjecting her to constant ridicule. Even some troublemakers resorted to creating vulgar jokes at her expense. Yuezheng Ting and Ms.Mi Jr. withdrew from public life for several days, and the servants were well aware of the situation but dared not speak of it to them. The second old master, who had been out, returned home in a fit of anger and confronted Ms.Mi Jr. He lashed out at Yuezheng Ting, blaming Ms.Mi Jr. for her inability to raise their daughter properly. In his rage, he even slapped Yuezheng Ting across the face. The mother and daughter were taken aback and overwhelmed with distress upon learning about the situation. They couldn't comprehend what had transpired and demanded an explanation. The recent events had left a deep scar in Yuezheng Ting's life, resembling a haunting nightmare. The news she heard from her father only intensified her anguish. Overwhelmed by shame, she instantly blushed and sought solace in Ms.Mi Jr.'s comforting embrace, avoiding any contact with others. She couldn't fathom her future anymore. She knew she would never be able to join her friends at their homes or on trips. Those who held grudges against her would surely revel in her misfortune and mock her mercilessly. The weight of her disgrace left her unable to face anyone ever again. Thoughts raced through her mind. What would Brother Xia think of her? Would he believe she was an utterly frivolous girl? No, that couldn't be true. The idea of marrying Xia Jingrong seemed unbearable as the thought of being looked down upon by him filled her with misery. Ms.Mi Jr. experienced a mix of embarrassment, surprise, and fury, overwhelmed by the situation and its implications. Ms.Mi Jr. reached her breaking point, unable to tolerate the humiliation inflicted upon her by her own husband. Old master, it must be the elder sister-in-law who orchestrated this scheme. The people from Liulang Temple vowed to keep the secret, and our servants are too afraid to speak up. It must be the elder sister-in-law's doing. She wants to humiliate us, to tarnish Ting's reputation. She must have paid people to spread the rumors. Old master, we implore you to help us. Ting is being bullied and her prospects for marriage are now ruined. Marrying someone? The second old master scoffed. Consider us lucky that she isn't engaged. Otherwise, we would have faced even more embarrassment when the engagement fell apart. Ms.Mi Jr. sobbed even harder, expressing her grievances. It has to be the elder sister-in-law's doing. Otherwise, why would the rumors single out Ting and not mention elder Miss Qiao, even though both are involved? It's clear as day. The elder sister-in-law has a close relationship with Qiao Xian, so they shield elder Miss Qiao from scrutiny. Infuriated, the second old master found himself believing Ms.Mi Jr.'s reasoning. It seemed logical to him given the circumstances. Chapter 825, Revenge. The couple approached Madame Yuezheng, seeking a fair resolution to their predicament. Upon hearing their plea, Madame Yuezheng was taken aback and nearly fainted. She couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. Overwhelmed with disappointment, she directed her anger towards Ms.Mi, questioning her abilities as a mother. She expressed concerns about Yuezheng Ting's future and expressed her disappointment in their actions. Ms.Mi Jr., feeling deeply wounded, covered her face and wept. Madame Yuezheng, I am to blame. But please, I beg you to take care of Ting and ensure justice for her. Madame Yuezheng's expression grew stern. She ordered, bring first Madame here. While Ms.Mi Jr. and her daughter might have been mistaken in their accusations, First Madame should not have taken actions to harm them. She was determined not to let that slide. As Madame Yuezheng spoke, she started to grasp the situation unfolding before her. She remained calm even as Ms.Mi Jr. glared at her and continued to accuse her. With a dark tone, Madame Yuezheng replied, Elder son's wife, your accusations have gone too far. We are all part of the same family. By attempting to set me up, you tarnish our family's reputation. You are mistaken. First Madame responded quietly, Madame Yuezheng, do you have any evidence to support your claim? Accusing me without any grounds is highly improper, isn't it? Ms.Mi Jr. snapped, it's evident. You're seeking revenge on me. If you have a problem with me, come directly to me. Why involve Ting in your schemes? You certainly have a high opinion of yourself. First Madame sneered. She had always been irritated by Ms.Mi Jr.'s habit of complaining about her in front of Madame Yuezheng. With a hushed tone, she continued, if I ever wish to take revenge on you, I have countless methods at my disposal. And rest assured, one would ensure that you never discover it was me. As far as First Madame was concerned, her granddaughter was still too young to be concerned about her reputation. Moreover, the first and second sections of the family were distinct entities. Madame Yuezheng, as you have stated, we are all part of the Yuezheng family. While I may not have a daughter, my sons may have daughters in the future. There is no benefit for me in engaging in such actions. Second sister-in-law, you assume I am responsible for all this, but do not make baseless assumptions. Show me the evidence. Otherwise, if you dare accuse me of something I have not done, I will slap you in the face. You dare speak so boldly because you know I have no evidence. Ms.Mi Jr. trembled with anger. First Madam regarded her as if she were staring at a fool. So, in the end, you have no evidence, yet you dare spout nonsense and accuse me in front of Madame Yuezheng so audaciously? Ms.Mi Jr. Madame Yuezheng felt a deep annoyance, secretly calling Ms.Mi Jr. a foolish woman. It seemed that Ms.Mi Jr. had easily managed to irritate her, and she imagined that her elder son's wife was likely mocking her inwardly. Feeling embarrassed, Madame Yuezheng furrowed her brow in anger. This was precisely why she had never held a fondness for First Madam. Her daughter-in-law was excessively intimidating and imposing, showing no regard for the feelings of the elders or attempting to ingratiate herself with them. She could never warm up to a person like that. Before they could inquire further, First Madam calmly began to explain. Many people had witnessed the incident, and Yuezheng Ting had openly revealed everything. Therefore, concealing the incident was impossible. The fact that the news did not spread until several days later was already a stroke of luck. The Yuezheng family was renowned in the province, and any scandal involving a member of the family naturally attracted significant attention. Hence, people reveled in discussing the matter. As for elder Miss Qiao, no one even knew who she was, so there was barely any gossip surrounding her. Chapter 826. Reasonable. The increasing wealth of the Yuezheng family attracted both allies and rivals, creating opportunities for their competitors to ruin their reputation and spread vile jokes about the family. When such gossip was spread, it was clear that there was someone behind it. But what could they do? Rumors were always intangible and omnipresent. Even the immense wealth of the Yuezheng family couldn't suppress them completely. Furthermore, the more explanations were offered, the more amusing it became for outsiders. They would seize upon any opportunity to create even more absurd tales that portrayed the family in a negative light. If they didn't trust Madame Yuezheng's judgment, they could provide explanations, but it wouldn't change the situation. Madame Yuezheng and the others felt a sense of numbness upon hearing these words. It was painfully true. The second old master felt immense shame and shot a resentful glare at his wife. If it weren't for this woman, he wouldn't find himself in this situation. She had proven herself to be incompetent, limited to playing petty tricks at home. She couldn't even properly educate her own daughter. Ms.Mi Jr. remained infuriated and had no trust in a single word uttered by First Madam. She firmly believed that First Madam was merely attempting to argue and defend herself. Even if competitors were involved in orchestrating this situation, First Madam had to be implicated as well. First Madam added, "Suggest you publicly portray it as an accident." By labeling it as an accident, they would acknowledge the incident while redirecting the public's focus away from other possibilities. Indeed, most people would believe it was an accident. After all, a woman from the prestigious Yuezheng family could never be involved with unemployed individuals. It must have been Lady Yuezheng who had the misfortune. Nevertheless, her marriage prospects would undoubtedly be affected. True to form, Ms.Mi Jr. hastened to arrange potential marriage alliances for her daughter, hoping to prove that Yuezheng Ting still had promising suitors. However, those whom she had previously favored or disliked turned her down. Ms.Mi Jr. seethed with anger, cursing those individuals as simple-minded fools. First Madam was left speechless upon hearing this from Auntie Hua. The rumor continued to circulate, and Ms.Mi Jr.'s attempts to find a suitor seemed futile. No one would agree to it. She should have waited at least a couple of years before making such efforts. Perhaps, at least half a year later, right? Ms.Mi Jr. was completely oblivious to the concept of haste makes waste. She remained increasingly driven and motivated to push further. This infuriated and worried Madame Yuezheng. She sternly warned Ms.Mi Jr. not to subject herself to further humiliation. Feeling miserable, Ms.Mi Jr. cried. Her daughter was already 18 years old, and if they waited for a few more years, she would have no suitable suitors left. Time was of the essence, and her daughter couldn't afford to wait any longer. Madame Yuezheng's anger intensified. She criticized Ms.Mi Jr. for being irritating and for her failure to plan ahead. As the tearful Ms.Mi Jr. was dismissed, Madame Yuezheng massaged her temples and called for First Madame to discuss a plan. Reluctantly, Madame Yuezheng had to admit that her elder son's wife was more dependable, despite her personal dislike for her. First Madame swiftly offered her suggestion. The best solution would be to bring Yuezheng Ting back to their hometown to find a suitable suitor. Ms.Mi Jr. should not focus on the suitor's family background, rather, integrity should be the most important factor to consider. Madame Yuezheng was taken aback by the suggestion. After a prolonged silence, she responded tersely, acknowledging that she understood, and then asked First Madame to leave. First Madame showed no objection and left without hesitation. However, Madame Yuezheng soon came to the realization that it was indeed the only way forward. Chapter 827, Back to Hometown U. TED by BXN0VL. Xiaomicron M. Yuezheng Ting was reaching an age where waiting for a suitable suitor was becoming increasingly difficult. The longer they waited, the fewer good prospects there would be available. However, given the scandal that had tarnished Yuezheng Ting's reputation in the province, it seemed impossible to find a suitable suitor for her there. Madame Yuezheng considered the option of looking for a suitor in their hometown, which was located at a considerable distance from the province. The Yuezheng family held a strong position in their hometown, and they could protect Yuezheng Ting when needed. Furthermore, the rumors would not reach that far. While the suitors from their hometown might not have as privileged backgrounds, there was still a chance for Yuezheng Ting to find a suitable partner there. Madame Yuezheng finally made the decision to pursue this path. However, Ms.Mi Jr. fiercely opposed this suggestion when she heard it. No, absolutely not. She refused to let her daughter return to the humble surroundings of their hometown to marry someone there. She believed it would ruin her daughter's life. Madame Yuezheng was furious. She cared for her granddaughter just as much and was not out to ruin her life. She was not an evil grandmother. Furthermore, Madame Yuezheng blamed Ms.Mi Jr. for failing to properly teach and guide her daughter, leading to the situation they were facing now. Ms.Mi Jr. remained determined and steadfast in her stance, adamantly refusing Madame Yuezheng's suggestion. She had changed, no longer displaying her previous sweetness and pretentiousness. She had a singular focus now: her daughters must marry someone in the province or even in more affluent regions. They were destined for a prosperous life, not to return to the countryside like their hometown. Their wealth was too great to be given to someone poor. Ms.Mi Jr. disregarded her previous behavior in front of her mother-in-law. The only thing she cared about now was ensuring her daughter would not marry someone beneath her, who would take advantage of her and her wealth. Madame Yuezheng was taken aback by Ms.Mi Jr.'s resolute rejection. She had never expected her beloved daughter-in-law, whom she had adored for so long, to be like this. It was a great shock to her, and she began to feel deeply disappointed. Furious at Ms.Mi Jr.'s refusal and her accusations of favoritism, Madame Yuezheng decided to drop the matter altogether. She was thoroughly disappointed in Ms.Mi Jr. She resolved not to impose any further requests on Yuezheng Ting or her. After all, Yuezheng Ting was not her own daughter but merely a granddaughter. It seemed that Yuezheng Ting had no interest in returning to their hometown either. From that moment on, Madame Yuezheng decided to change her treatment of Ms.Mi Jr. She no longer treated her with the same kindness and favor as before. Ms.Mi Jr. breathed a sigh of relief and began seeking potential suitors, even considering those from neighboring towns. However, her efforts yielded no positive results. The families interested in marrying Yuezheng Ting did not meet Ms.Mi Jr.'s standards. Just when they believed the situation would continue dragging on for an extended period, an unexpected event occurred, bringing about a turning point. Unfortunately, it was not a favorable turn of events. Yuezheng Ting's sister, Yuezheng Yan, who had been married for a while, caused trouble once again. Yuezheng Yan's husband relied heavily on the Yuezheng family for his business, and their family enjoyed wealth and numerous properties. However, this dependence and Yuezheng Yan's growing arrogance created a rift between her and her husband, driving them further apart. Yuezheng Yan strongly opposed her husband, Qi Yun, having a concubine. Just 2 months into their marriage, she forcefully dismissed the maid who had slept with her husband. Not stopping there, Yuezheng Yan replaced the other attractive maids with plain-looking and clumsy ones. She was not concerned about mistreating the maids she had purchased, and she would punish them severely if they dared to cross any boundaries. Qi Yun, Yuezheng Yan's husband, struggled with her controlling behavior. Initially, his mother explained that Yuezheng Yan's actions stemmed from her care and desire to keep him close. Although Qi Yun did not appreciate it, he reluctantly accepted this explanation. Chapter 828, Yuezheng Ting's Sister Yu. TED by BXN0VL. Xiaomicron M. Yuezheng Yan had become increasingly tyrannical, believing that her husband's family should conform to her every whim and mood. Within just 6 months, she had managed to offend not only her husband's entire family but also their relatives. Despite their resentment, they dared not confront her due to her status as a member of the influential Yuezheng family. Although Yuezheng Yan was arrogant and overbearing, she had not engaged in any cruel or lethal acts, leading her husband's family to tolerate her behavior. However, Qi Yun soon discovered something shocking. Yuezheng Yan had arranged marriages for his 2 serving maids with elderly, unattractive widowers from rural areas. She had gone to great lengths to find such matches. As a result, the 2 serving maids were subjected to a wretched existence. When Qi Yun learned of their plight, one of the maids had already succumbed to the relentless torment, while the other had aged prematurely, bearing scars on her forehead and losing all her former beauty. Filled with horror and anguish, Qi Yun immediately brought the surviving maid back home and placed her in a convent for her safety. Determined to uncover the truth, he confronted Yuezheng Yan about her actions. Yuezheng Yan insisted that she had found 2 excellent suitors for the serving maids and had generously provided them with a substantial sum of money to live a comfortable life. Qi Yun, trusting his legal wife, believed that she had acted in their best interest. Unbeknownst to Qi Yun, Yuezheng Yan's intentions were far from noble. She was leading the maids down a path of despair and destruction. However, Yuezheng Yan showed no remorse. Instead, she began to create a tumultuous scene, accusing Qi Yun of rekindling his relationship with the maids and questioning his love for her as his legal wife. She cried, shouted, and hurled vulgar insults at Qi Yun, even seeking support from her parents and Madame Yuezheng. Ms.Mi Jr. and Madame Yuezheng, being fond of Yuezheng Yan, became incensed upon hearing her side of the story. In the end, Qi Yun was compelled to apologize, bowing down to Yuezheng Yan's demands. Yuezheng Yan may have obtained her perceived justice, but she had lost the support and respect she once had from Qi Yun's family. Qi Yun eventually made the difficult decision to distance himself from Yuezheng Yan. Although she appeared to hold a position of authority within Qi Yun's family, the truth was that no one genuinely liked her or regarded her as a true family member. It was during this time that Yuezheng Yan discovered Qi Yun had a mistress who had even given birth to a son and a daughter. Overwhelmed by jealousy and rage, Yuezheng Yan assembled a group of her own men and stormed the mistress' residence with the intention of harming her and selling her children. Upon learning of the situation, Qi Yun rushed to the scene to intervene. Unfortunately, the children had already been sold to intermediaries, and his mistress had been subjected to a brutal beating, losing consciousness multiple times. Qi Yun's anger surged within him. He rescued his mistress and instructed his men to protect her while he set off to find and secure the safety of the children. Meanwhile, Yuezheng Yan's mental state deteriorated further. She wept uncontrollably and retreated to the solace of her own home. News of the shocking incident spread throughout the province, leaving no doubt that few would tolerate their husbands having mistresses. However, there was no support or sympathy to be found for Yuezheng Yan in the aftermath. The mistress' actions were undoubtedly immoral, but taking her life was not the solution. Teaching her a lesson and holding her accountable for her deeds would have been more appropriate. Yuezheng Yan's decision to sell her husband's children to an agent instead of bringing them home was truly horrifying and inhumane. Yuezheng Yan had never enjoyed a favorable reputation, and her behavior within her husband's family only added fuel to the rumors that circulated about her. She consistently disregarded the authority of the elder family members and imposed her will upon others. Additionally, her failure to bear any children and her blatant disregard for virtuous conduct only furthered her negative image. It was not surprising that her husband might consider leaving her, given the circumstances. Many sighed in resignation, accepting the situation as a natural consequence. When Ms.Mi Jr. heard about the rumors surrounding her daughter, she refused to believe them. Instead, she attributed the spread of such stories to jealousy from individuals who were envious of her daughter's prosperity and well-being. Chapter 829, Ms.Mi Jr. Getting Mental U. TED by BXN0VL. C-Omicron Prior to Yuezheng Ting's accident, the process of arranging her marriage was already facing obstacles, primarily due to her sister's behavior. Families who valued propriety and adherence to rules were hesitant to accept a daughter-in-law with such flaws. Only those who prioritized their own material gains were willing to overlook these concerns. The return of Yuezheng to the family further enraged Ms.Mi Jr., leading her to curse at the Qi family. She felt that everything was going wrong and blamed the heavens for subjecting her daughters to such hardships. As First Madam and the Old Master held the authority, Ms.Mi Jr. was not allowed to execute her own plans based on personal interests. Therefore, they took charge and addressed the matter. After years of enduring the situation, Qi Yun's parents and Qi Yun himself came to the Yuezheng family to expose Yuezheng actions in front of Madame Yuezheng, First Madam, Ms.Mi Jr., and her husband. Ultimately, they declared that Qi Yun intended to marry his mistress and insisted on bringing the children back home. They also prohibited Yuezheng from interfering in the matter. If Yuezheng objected to these terms, they were willing to grant a divorce. The Qi family would return the dowry and provide an additional 10,000 liang as compensation. Ms.Mi Jr. was pushed to the brink of a mental breakdown by these developments. Ms.Mi Jr. was furious at the audacity of the Qi family. She believed that the fault lay with her elder brother and elder sister-in-law, as they should have exerted pressure on the Qi family to prevent such behavior. While acknowledging that the Qi family did consider this aspect, the primary decision-makers within the family were known for their fairness in handling family matters. Despite the questionable actions of the Qi family, Yuezheng found herself in an even worse predicament. Both Madame Yuezheng and the influential members of the family suggested pursuing a divorce. However, both Ms.Mi Jr. and Yuezheng vehemently rejected this proposition. They refused to entertain the idea. Divorce was out of the question for them. Their underlying intention was to withhold any benefits from outsiders. Their determination only served to exacerbate the situation further. Yuezheng returned to the Qi family and swore an oath to punish the mistress and her 2 children. However, Mrs. Qi had already taken the grandchildren under her care, and Qi Yun personally selected the servants for the mistress. Consequently, Yuezheng orders had no effect. Yuezheng maids and aunties were on the verge of physically assaulting the concubine when the concubine's servants intervened and reported the incident to Qi Yun. In response, Qi Yun issued severe punishments to the maids and aunties who had assisted Yuezheng. No one dared to defend Yuezheng anymore. Yuezheng created a scene, behaving erratically. As a result, Qi Yun ordered her to be confined to the yard, prohibiting her from leaving its confines. Unbeknownst to Yuezheng, once Qi Yun discovered her true nature, he began administering a medicinal soup after their intimate encounters to prevent her from becoming pregnant. Furthermore, Qi Yun developed strong negative feelings toward Yuezheng and ceased any further physical intimacy with her. As a result, she remained childless throughout those years. Qi Yun preferred to have no legitimate children rather than allowing Yuezheng to bear a child who would carry his bloodline. News of Yuezheng actions spread widely after the commotion at the Qi family. Curiously enough, it was the Qi family themselves who willingly propagated these stories whenever they were asked, demonstrating a surprising openness and lack of concern for their reputation. The entire town was both shocked and captivated by the scandalous gossip surrounding the Qi family. However, due to the tarnished reputation caused by Yuezheng actions, the prospects of finding a suitable suitor for Yuezheng became extremely slim. Nevertheless, Ms.Mi Jr. remained resolute and unwavering in her determination. She refused to give up and tirelessly continued her search for a suitable match for Yuezheng. She faced countless rejections and endured the mockery of people whispering behind her back. Madame Yuezheng could no longer bear witnessing Ms.Mi Jr.'s relentless pursuit. With a heavy heart, she confronted Ms.Mi Jr. Either Ms.Mi Jr. keeps Yuezheng Ting company back to the hometown so they could arrange a marriage deal. Or she can dispatch one old auntie who keeps her company back to the hometown to arrange a marriage deal. Chapter 830, Shocked You. TED by BXN0VL. See Omicron M. Either of the two options would be given to them. If Ms.Mi Jr. refused to make a choice, she would be presented with the second option. Ms.Mi Jr. appeared completely possessed, displaying a strong resistance to accepting the proposal. Her rebellion provoked Madame Yuezheng to a great extent. In response, the second old master delivered a swift slap across Ms.Mi Jr.'s face, finally silencing her. Reluctant to let Yuezheng Ting return to her hometown alone, Ms.Mi Jr. decided to accompany her. Madame Yuezheng assigned her trusted auntie and a few female maids to approach the clan leader and select a suitable suitor, disregarding Ms.Mi Jr.'s input due to her consistent disapproval. If a decision couldn't be reached, a letter would be sent to Madame Yuezheng, who planned to teach Ms.Mi Jr. a valuable lesson. Upon discovering Ms.Mi Jr.'s true nature, Madame Yuezheng realized she had been deceived all these years. She lost any desire to defend and protect Ms.Mi Jr. The embarrassment and anger she felt when recalling the situation were overwhelming, as it meant she had foolishly placed her trust in a deceitful daughter-in-law for so long. Regardless of Ms.Mi Jr. and Yuezheng Ting's thoughts, they were compelled to leave the province discreetly. They had no intention of returning for at least 6 months. The Yuezheng family paid no heed to the rumors circulating in town, and with time, they faded away along with Ms.Mi Jr.'s presence. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan were left in shock upon hearing the story. It became evident that Ms.Mi Jr. was indeed an eccentric individual, and her daughter Yuezheng Ting was no different. The fact that both the mother and daughter were no longer in the province brought a sense of relief. There was no longer a need to be wary of their presence. Little did anyone know that Qiao Xian was the true instigator behind the events that transpired. However, it should be acknowledged that Yuezheng Ting had sparked the conflict initially. Qiao Xian's subsequent actions were merely a form of retaliation. It was a matter of tit for tat. Had Qiao Xian not possessed superpowers, she would have been the one facing harm. Yuezheng Ting would have shown no mercy towards her. Qiao Xian was merely returning the favor in kind. For Yuezheng Ting, it might have been disheartening to marry in her hometown. However, in the long run, it might not necessarily be a negative outcome for her. Living in the province would have led to her own downfall, similar to what happened to her sister. First Madame couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness when Ms.Mi Jr. and her daughter disappeared from their sight. And her joy only increased upon receiving Qiao Xian's gift. So, First Madame invited Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan to spend the night at the Yuezheng family's residence. Since their stay was short, there were no complications in their journey back home. Yuezheng Shao also extended the offer for them to stay. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan gladly accepted the invitation. The next day, Shao Yunduan accompanied Qiao Xian as they planted papayas and dragon fruits. Yuezheng Shao and Xie Jingrong joined them, eager to witness the process. They were astonished by the appearance of the dragon fruit seeds. Qiao Xian instructed the seeds to be sorted based on their size, as they exhibited various shapes and sizes. Carefully, they were planted in separate patches, ensuring proper spacing. Qiao Xian believed that some preparation could be done with the dragon fruit seeds before they were planted, unlike the papaya seeds that could be directly planted without any additional steps. Chapter 831, Fruit Seeds U. TED by BXN0VL. See Omicron M. Qiao Xian signaled the workers to follow the height markings she had drawn. The seeds were divided into sections, first 2, then 3, resulting in the growth of multiple trees. With the trees ready, they could be planted directly into the earth. Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Shao were both astonished by this sight. Planting fruit seeds turned out to be much simpler than they had imagined. After providing instructions to the manager on what to do and where to plant the seeds, Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan didn't need to visit the land again until everything was completed. However, Qiao Xian made sure to use her superpower to strengthen the plants, ensuring their survival during the winter. Once everything was settled, they returned the orchid to Xiajingrong. We were fortunate enough to save the flower. We wouldn't take away something you cherished. Young Master Xia, you can have the flower back, Qiao Xian said casually, but Xiajingrong was taken aback. Is this the orchid one gave to Brother Shao? Xiajingrong asked, unable to contain his surprise. Shao Yunduan nodded. Yes, it is. You recognized it, didn't you? Xiajingrong did recognize it, but he was too shocked to believe it. Thus, he asked the obvious question. Brother Shao and sister-in-law, you are simply incredible. Xiajingrong exclaimed, filled with awe. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the living flower before him. Xiajingrong had a deep love for orchids and possessed extensive knowledge about various precious varieties. He couldn't do anything to revive the dying flower, but he didn't want to discard it either. Thus, he entrusted it to Shao Yunduan, who came from a family with thriving plants, hoping for a miracle. However, he never expected Shao Yunduan and Qiao Xian to bring him such a tremendous surprise. Elle gave you the flower, so you should keep it, Xiajingrong expressed his gratitude before politely declining their proposal. However, recalling the fact that the flower had been saved by the couple, Xiajingrong couldn't help but feel puzzled. He couldn't remember what he had given them, especially when the flower had been rescued by their efforts. Shao Yunduan turned to Qiao Xian with a smile, indicating that she should make the decision. Qiao Xian smiled back and said, Young Master Xia, don't worry about it. I saved one bud from the orchid, and it will bloom when the weather turns warmer next year. So, you should keep the original flower after all. We didn't do much, just offered our help in whatever way we could. It might seem impressive to you because you're not an expert in this field, added Shao Yunduan with a smile. Brother Xia, please accept it, just as my wife suggested. After contemplating for a moment, Xiajingrong accepted the flower and said, All right then, I'll accept it. Thank you so much, Brother Shao and sister-in-law. I will cherish this and take it back. With gratitude in his heart, Xiajingrong decided, okay, I will take it back. Thank you so much for taking care of them. That's wonderful. Everyone laughed, and a sense of harmony filled the air as the matter was resolved. Xiajingrong smiled, his admiration for the couple in front of him growing stronger. He couldn't help but appreciate their thoughtfulness and selflessness. The couple fully understood the value of the orchid, knowing how exceptionally precious it was. If Shao Yunduan had used this orchid to help Xiajingrong secure a favorable outcome in the upcoming spring examination, it would undoubtedly provide him with a strong foundation for his future. However, they didn't choose that path. Instead, they returned the flower to Xiajingrong. There were few individuals in the world who possessed the level of composure and emotional stability that this couple exhibited. It was a testament to their exceptional character. Chapter 832, Fruit Planting You. TED by BXN0VL. C Omicron M, and among those rare individuals, finding a woman like Qiao Xian was even more extraordinary. Xiajingrong felt a sense of admiration and gratitude towards the couple, so he presented them with a pot of green first-class orchids and a pot of Song Mei orchids. These orchids were not only rare and valuable but also possessed breathtaking beauty. Shao Yunduan and Qiao Xian graciously accepted the gifts, appreciating Xiajingrong's kind gesture. 2 days later, the papayas and dragon fruits were successfully planted. They had managed to cultivate 30 mu of papayas and 50 mu of dragon fruits, which was half of what Qiao Xian had initially anticipated. However, they viewed this as an experimental phase and were willing to take things slowly. Surviving the upcoming winter was crucial. If they could endure and thrive during this season, it would pave the way for their success in the future. Qiao Xian had a plan to gradually expand their cultivation once they had proven their resilience. Failure to survive the winter would mean the end for their endeavors. Shao Yunduan and Qiao Xian diligently inspected the plants, and Qiao Xian secretly utilized her superpower to enhance their growth. She carefully infused vitality and energy into the roots, akin to providing them with the best possible nourishment. However, Qiao Xian had her limitations when using her superpower. It drained her energy, and maintaining secrecy proved to be challenging. The entire process consumed an entire afternoon. When they were finally finished, Qiao let out a sigh of relief, feeling physically and mentally exhausted. She was grateful that her energy would replenish overnight, allowing her to continue her work the following day. Realizing that their efforts thus far were insufficient, Qiao instructed the manager to refrain from stacking the prepared corn stalks and straw. She wanted to ensure that if a severe frost occurred, the straw could be burned to create dense smoke, providing warmth to the surrounding air and protecting the fruit seedlings. As the day grew colder, the fields required the additional coverage of straw to safeguard the delicate roots. 2 days before their departure, Qiao decided to infuse more of her superpower into the plants. She planned to provide them with an extra boost of energy during their visit to the province a month before the new year when they would purchase supplies. By employing all available methods, Qiao believed that the effects would prove to be favorable. After bidding farewell to First Madam, Yuezheng Shao, and Xie Qiao and Shao Yunduan didn't spend much time in the province. Following the fruit and seed planting, they embarked on their journey back to the county. On their way to the village, they unexpectedly encountered Ms.Zhang, who had returned once again. Spotting Ms.Zhang from their cart, they momentarily doubted their eyes. However, Ms.Zhang sneered at them with a rigid expression and swiftly departed without saying a word. Upon their arrival home, Qiao and Shao Yunduan were warmly received by their family members who assisted them in sorting through the gifts and unloading the luggage. Qiao's curiosity got the better of her, and she couldn't resist asking about what had transpired in their absence. Miss Fong sneered and responded with irony, "Ah, that woman." The other night, during the rain, she came and fainted right at the doorstep of the second section of the family's home. And there she stayed. Erlang still has some lingering feelings for her, after all. Young Xiani's eyes sparkled with excitement as she eagerly prepared to share the story. Qiao captured the moment in a picture, wanting to remember it. Since her divorce, Ms.Zhang had been leading a tumultuous life with her mother and the rest of the family. She was constantly sobbing, her eyes red with grief. She expressed longing for her children and husband, and she carried a heavy burden of guilt regarding her brother. Her days were filled with sorrow. Mrs. Zhang voiced her frustration, complaining that Ms. Zhang was utterly useless and that she never saw her wear a happy expression. Chapter 833, Ms. Zhang's Return. TED by BXN0VL. Omicron M. Mrs. Zhang's annoyance with Ms. Zhang grew stronger, as she believed her daughter not only brought no benefits to the family but also caused her precious son to be beaten. Consequently, Ms. Zhang was cast out by the Shao family and forced to rely on her mother's support. Mrs. Zhang's frustration escalated, leading to verbal and physical abuse towards Ms. Zhang. She compelled her daughter to rise before daybreak and perform exhausting labor in the fields, while intentionally depriving her of sufficient food. Ms. Zhang received only half a bowl of rice and a bowl of rotten vegetables, devoid of salt and oil. She was constantly referred to as the useless woman and trash, who only consumed without contributing anything positive to the family. This treatment left Ms. Zhang feeling deeply saddened and burdened by guilt. She believed herself to be useless to her mother's family and accepted the curses and blame as her way of atoning for her perceived sins. Silently enduring the hardships, Ms. Zhang worked even harder, convinced that it was the only way to repay her sins and earn her mother's forgiveness. Unfortunately, her physical strength waned, and she soon fell ill due to exhaustion and hunger. Ms. Zhang held on to the hope that her illness would garner care, forgiveness, or at least a decent meal, considering the tremendous effort she had put into her work. However, Mrs. Zhang responded with even more furious curses and harsh disappointment, shattering Ms. Zhang's expectations. Mrs. Zhang directed her anger towards Ms. Zhang, accusing her of intentionally falling ill to avoid work and bringing misfortune to the family as a heartless and wicked woman. She withheld any concern, care, or food from her daughter, offering only disdain and hatred. These words pierced Ms. Zhang's heart like a sharp blade. Her hope crumbled, shattered by her mother's lack of compassion. Shocked and disheartened, Ms. Zhang's motivation to work hard diminished. She became less active in labor, frequently pausing and becoming lost in her thoughts. Tears would stream down her face as she cried silently. Mrs. Zhang, however, grew even more relentless in her treatment of Ms.Zhang. She continued to berate her for being useless, emphasizing that even receiving any portion of food at home was futile, as she believed raising her had been a pointless endeavor. Nis. Zhang felt immense sadness, shedding tears in solitude every day. Unable to bear it any longer, a few days ago, she impulsively fled Zhang village and embarked on a journey to Shading village, crying heavily along the way. So one morning, when Ms.Mi opened her home's door, she let out a piercing scream, nearly fainting in fright at the sight of a disheveled and distressed woman standing in the cold weather. As Ms.Mi realized that the woman at her gate was Ms.Zhang, she couldn't bring herself to allow her former daughter-in-law to collapse there. Despite her stingy and greedy nature, she couldn't leave her in such a dire state, especially considering the cold and rainy weather that could have led to her demise. Begrudgingly, Ms.Mi enlisted the help of Ms. Yan to carry Ms.Zhang into a room, where she was provided with a bowl of ginger soup. It was an act of begrudging kindness, compelled by the circumstances. In the evening, when Shao returned home and discovered the situation, he was taken aback and immediately went to summon a doctor. Overwhelmed with emotions, the couple embraced each other and wept. Shao hadn't anticipated the extent of the suffering Ms.Zhang had endured in her own home. Seeing her dressed in tattered clothing, significantly thinner, and with hands marred by wounds and scars, his heart softened. The sight of their mother in such a pitiful state brought tears streaming down the faces of their two children. Chapter 834, Their Fault You. TED by BXN0VL. See Omicron M. Shao Erlang's determination to protect Ms. Zhang and ensure her safety was unwavering. He refused to drive her away, understanding that it would only lead to her demise. Desperate, he knelt down before his parents, Ms.Mi and second uncle, pleading for their forgiveness and begging them to allow Ms. Zhang to stay. He promised to take responsibility for her, vowing to guide her and prevent her from making any further mistakes. However, he made it clear that his compassion was contingent on their acceptance of Ms. Zhang. Initially, both second uncle and Ms.Mi were infuriated by Shao Erlang's pleas. They hurled curses at him, deeming him foolish for his persistence. They reluctantly agreed to let Ms. Zhang stay, primarily for the sake of the children. Shao Erlang's relentless persuasion had worn them down, though their resentment toward Ms. Zhang was apparent. Ms. Zhang overheard their conversation and a sense of bitterness welled up within her. She had been treated as a slave within her own family, and the moment she had access to decent food and clothing, she forgot about her past misery. Now, she harbored a deep hatred towards Ms.Mi and second uncle, blaming them for the circumstances she found herself in. In her mind, if they had shown her even a modicum of kindness, she would not have fallen into such a desperate situation. She held them responsible for her misfortune. Despite Ms. Zhang's troubled presence, her husband, Shao Erlang, remained the only redeeming figure within the Shao family. The rest of the family members were seen as lacking in goodness and virtue. Nis. Zhang soon caused trouble once again, and this time it seemed that her fate was sealed. Tearful apologies and kowtows ensued, forcing Ms.Mi to reluctantly tolerate Ms. Zhang's presence once more. The situation infuriated Ms. Yan, who vented her frustrations to Shao Xilang behind closed doors. In an attempt to placate his wife, Shao Xilang resorted to flattery and consolation. Only then did Ms. Yan find some solace. With Ms. Zhang back in the household, it became imperative to retrieve the divorce papers. Ms.Mi enlisted the help of Shao Erlang and several villagers from the same village to retrieve the documents from the Zhang village. It was necessary to rectify the situation, as having Ms. Zhang remain under their roof without the proper legal documentation would tarnish the family's reputation. However, to their surprise, the Zhang family, including Mrs. Zhang, proved to be peculiar individuals. They insisted that since Ms. Zhang had divorced and remarried, the Shao family must compensate them with wedding gifts before they would release the divorce papers. Since Ms. Zhang was not divorced for too long, the Zhang family called for just 30 liang as the wedding gifts. Otherwise there would be no divorce paper. Ms.Mi was utterly shocked by Mrs. Zhang's shameless behavior. She vehemently refused to offer any monetary compensation, condemning Mrs. Zhang as greedy and outrageous. In her view, 30 liang was far too exorbitant. With that amount, they could easily find a new, young girl to marry Shao Erlang. According to Ms.Mi, Ms. Zhang was not worth 30 liang at all. She decided not to pursue the divorce papers any further. Instead, she planned to bring Ms. Zhang back to their own family and seek out a matchmaker to find a pretty and beautiful young girl for Shao Erlang's marriage. Mrs. Zhang seethed with anger, accusing the Shao family of bullying. Ms.Mi sharply retorted, telling Shao Erlang to accompany her home. She declared that she did not need such despicable relatives. Shao Erlang was equally taken aback by the situation. He had not anticipated this turn of events. The Zhang family's demands were excessive, and their behavior bordered on harassment. Shao Erlang chose to remain silent, recognizing that further involvement would likely invite even more trouble. Eventually, someone informed the land officer about the situation. The land officer deemed the matter too humiliating for the village and intervened to restore peace. He compelled Mrs. Zhang to provide the divorce papers. The land officer regarded Ms. Zhang as fortunate that the Shao family was willing to accept her. Mrs. Zhang's demand for 30 liang as a wedding gift was considered nonsensical. She appeared to be driven solely by a desire for maximum profit, charging exorbitant amounts without any sense of reason or fairness. Chapter 835, Miserable You. TED by BXN0VL. C. Omicron M. However, Ms.Mi had no interest in bargaining with Mrs. Zhang. She simply stated that she no longer needed Ms. Zhang and insisted that she should return to her own home. Mrs. Zhang started to panic. She wished that Ms. Zhang could stay with the Shao family, as they were living a more prosperous life. Mrs. Zhang believed that they could surely benefit from having Ms. Zhang in their household. The intervention of the land officer forced Mrs. Zhang to concede. She had no choice but to offer the divorce papers. The chaotic situation finally came to an end. People inside and outside the village ridiculed the Zhang family for their irrational behavior. The family's reputation suffered a severe blow due to having a divorced daughter and an unmarried girl in their household. The Zhang family's demand for 30 liang as a remarriage gift was seen as outrageous and embarrassing. Ms. Zhang returned to the Shao family, but she knew she would face mockery and disdain. She had become a target of hatred due to her past actions. People showed no friendliness towards Ms. Zhang. Those who used to socialize with her now kept their distance. They hurried past her or took alternate routes to avoid her. Women with children regarded her with caution, eyeing her warily as if she might dose a threat to their children. Fearing that Ms. Zhang would TRV to kidnap them for money. Ms. Zhang felt a deep sense of misery and bitterness, mixed with anger. She resented those people who judged her without understanding the difficulties she had faced. She believed she had been driven to her actions. Simultaneously, Ms. Zhang harbored resentment towards Ms.Mi, the matriarch of the Shao family, and everyone else from the Shao family. She viewed them as cruel and heartless, attributing her current circumstances to their actions. No one was aware of the depth of Ms. Zhang's grudge, but she was now back in her husband's home. Hearing Yang Xiaoni and Ms. Fang's gossip, Qiao Xian found herself at a loss for words. However, she wasn't entirely surprised by the situation. Ms. Zhang, with her 2 young children, collapsed at the gate of the house. Shao Erlang, still having feelings for his wife, was determined to keep her by his side. However, given the previous incidents, people were becoming increasingly wary of her, and it seemed like a volatile situation was about to erupt. Qiao Xian doubted that Ms. Zhang would be able to stay in the second section of the family for long. She inquired, "How does second aunt-in-law treat Ms. Zhang? Is she kind to her?" "Of course not." Yang Xiaoni eagerly shared the details. She pursed her lips, expressing disdain, and replied, "Second aunt-in-law never treats her well, given what she did in the past. According to what the fourth sister-in-law told me, Ms. Zhang is not allowed to participate in any family matters. She is prohibited from entering the kitchen or being near the children. Second aunt-in-law watches her closely, as if she were a thief. After breakfast, she is forced to work in the fields and is not allowed to return until lunchtime. The same continues in the afternoon, and she isn't allowed to come home until evening. They won't let her stay at home anyway, fearing she might come up with some strange ideas again." Chapter 836, Unpredictable You. TED by BXN0VL. C-Omicron Qiao Xian's heart raced with concern. It was understandable that Ms.Mi might feel anxious after the previous incident. However, her current behavior seemed excessive. Qiao Xian worried that Ms.Zhang could suffer mentally from such treatment. Although Ms.Zhang had been described as narrow-minded, dumb, and extreme, her potential actions remained unpredictable. Considering that Ms.Mi had agreed to take Ms.Zhang in, it was inappropriate to treat her this way. However, Ms.Mi was not enthusiastic about accepting Ms.Zhang in the first place. It was Shao Erlang who insisted, and Ms.Mi herself was not known for being open-minded. The situation was becoming increasingly chaotic, and the future appeared uncertain to all involved. Qiao Xian confided in Ms. Fang, seeking her opinion on the matter. Ms. Fang furrowed her brows and spoke abruptly, "Your second aunt-in-law is also causing trouble with her foolishness. If she chose to take her in, she should let go of the past and be more open-minded. What's the point otherwise?" Qiao Xian expressed concern that another incident might occur, especially for the sake of the two young children involved. They were innocent and deserved better. In light of this, Qiao Xian pondered whether it was necessary to warn Ms.Mi after all, and shared these thoughts with Ms. Fang. Ms. Qiao's face brightened with a smile upon hearing Ms. Fang's words. "Mom, you're so understanding. You can have a conversation with second aunt-in-law, but ultimately, it's up to her whether she wants to accept it." "Exactly. I can only provide the warning, but I can't force her to listen. Their family affairs are not my concern." Soon, Ms. Fang approached Ms.Mi to discuss the matter. However, Ms.Mi dismissed every word Ms. Fang said, even going so far as to label her as nosy and relishing in her supposed misery. Treating Ms.Zhang better was out of the question for Ms.Mi. She believed that Ms. Fang's intentions were to ensure they didn't lead a good life. Ms. Fang grew increasingly frustrated by this response. She vented her frustrations at home, only ceasing when Qiao Xian and Yang Xiaoni tried to console her. The warning had been given but not accepted. Nevertheless, they no longer felt guilty about not passing on the message. They would be cautious to avoid becoming entangled in their misfortune. The first section of the family had a good relationship with Ms. Yan. So when Ms. Yan came to visit, Yang Xiaoni discreetly offered her some reminders to be prepared. However, there was no need to inform others about this. Ms. Yan was taken aback by the revelation. Ms. Yan also recognized that her mother-in-law's behavior was excessive. She had not anticipated the potential mental distress that Ms. Zhang might experience or the possibility of her engaging in further unpredictable actions. Nevertheless, the warning served as a reminder and left her feeling uneasy. Ms. Yan nodded in agreement and assured Qiao Xian that she was aware of the situation. Admittedly, Ms. Zhang had a peculiar temperament, and under the treatment she received from Ms.Mi, she could potentially cause trouble once again. Ms. Yan, however, wanted to avoid getting entangled in the situation. She questioned why she had to be involved in the first place. Subsequently, people's attention began to shift away from Ms. Zhang as a significant event unfolded in the village. A military recruitment order had been issued for Shaoding village. The Ding family and the Shao family were each required to send one person to join the army. Panic spread throughout the village as families with less than 2 sons became anxious. The realization that joining the army meant potential suffering and the risk of being killed in battle made everyone desperate to prevent their sons from being drafted. The only exceptions were families too impoverished to support their child or those who harbored dislike towards their own offspring. Chapter 837, Qs Wish You. TED by BXN0VL. C-Omicron however, the villagers in this area were leading relatively comfortable lives. No families were without a home or lacked food. Consequently, the idea of getting involved in the military recruitment was met with reluctance. Unexpectedly, Qi himself proposed to join the army, catching his family off guard. It happened right after they had enjoyed a delightful dinner prepared by Qiao Xian. Everyone was taken aback, thinking they must have misheard him. Qi reiterated his proposal, and Ms. Fang immediately snapped at him, "You foolish child." She raised her hand as if to slap him, but the others intervened swiftly, preventing any harm. "Qi, don't be reckless. You can't speak of such matters so casually. Yes, we have more than enough food and clothing at home. Joining the army is extremely dangerous. Stay here with us. Going into battle as a soldier is terrifying. It's much safer to remain at home. You're still young and ignorant. Don't go, just stay with us. Listen carefully. This discussion must not leave this room or reach anyone else. I will not hesitate to deal with anyone who spreads this news. Only Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan remained silent, contemplating the situation. Qi felt deeply saddened by his family's reactions. He turned to Shao Yunduan, his fifth brother, and asked with determination, "Do you also find me ridiculous? Do you object to my proposal?" "Don't speak to him." "Of course, he objects." "Let's end this discussion now, or I will beat you." Miss Fang became irritated once again, and she was about to physically harm Qi when the others intervened and stopped her. Through sobs, Ms. Fang exclaimed, "You foolish boy. You're deliberately trying to anger me. We had just started to experience happiness in our lives, and now this." Shao Yunduan spoke in a gentle tone, "Mom, please don't worry. Dad, let me have a private conversation with Qi. We'll have a meaningful talk." Miss Fang and eldest uncle sighed with relief. Ms. Fang nodded, saying, "Convince him to change his mind." "Don't worry, Mom." Shao Yunduan led Qi away to the study in his own yard. Inside the study, Qi lowered his head, biting his lip, visibly distressed. Shao Yunduan looked at Qi intently and let out a heartfelt sigh. Qi had grown taller and stronger. He was no longer a child. In another 2 or 3 years, Qi might even surpass his older brother in height and strength. Would he become stronger than him as well? Qi had already displayed impressive capabilities. He could hunt large animals with ease, displaying remarkable skill and agility. His sharp gaze and proficiency with the bow made him truly admirable. It was impossible for anyone to perceive him as just an ordinary teenager given his exceptional abilities. Shao Yunduan honestly didn't believe that he should confine Qi indoors. Qi, not as eloquent as his fifth brother, scratched his head and turned to Shao Yunduan. "Fifth brother, I can take care of myself. Please let me join the army." Shao Yunduan asked, "Are you certain about this?" Qi nodded vigorously, his determination evident. Yes. I really want to join the army. You understand that joining the army is not a trivial matter. Once you're enlisted, there's no turning back. Deserters are beheaded. When you're in the camp, you'll start as a low-ranking soldier, enduring the harshest living and eating conditions, worse than what our family has experienced in the past. If you have a harsh commander, your life will become even more miserable. Chapter 838, Deep Consideration U. TED by BXN0VL. See Omicron M. Daily training will be grueling, and in times of war, soldiers like you will be on the front lines. There's a real risk of losing your life or being used as bait. Aren't you afraid of that? Shao Yunduan questioned. Even if I become an officer as an advanced scholar, from a recommended man, I may not be able to help you. Besides, the army doesn't consider where you're from. Your fate will depend solely on your own actions once you're there. Are you still determined to join the army? Shao Xiaoqi was taken aback, but his hesitation only lasted for a moment before he nodded. Fifth brother, I'm not afraid. I want to join the army. I feel the need to do something meaningful with my life, or I'll regret it in the future. With you and fifth sister-in-law at home, I won't fear anything or have anything to be afraid of. That's enough for me. Shao Yunduan chuckled. You're just a kid. What do you understand about the things adults talk about? Don't worry about our family. Shao Xiaoqi smiled sheepishly. Don't answer me so hastily. Take some rest and think it over. The recruitment process won't be completed so quickly. The deadline is still a few days away. Take a couple of days to ponder on it and let me know then. Shao Xiaoqi's eyes brightened. He added, Fifth brother, L. No more words for now. Pretend I haven't heard anything. Go and contemplate. Don't make any impulsive decisions. Qi, this is your life, and one won't interfere. But you must take responsibility for your choices and think through them thoroughly. Remember, you have loving parents and siblings who genuinely care about you. Tears welled up in Shao Zioqi's eyes as he nodded. Shao Xiaoqi quietly retreated to his own room to avoid his mother's scolding. Shao Yunduan contemplated something else in the study before gathering his thoughts and heading to his parents. Ms. Fang anxiously inquired, "Did you stop him? Where is he?" "Don't worry, Mom." Shao Yunduan reassured her with a smile. Elle explained everything to him and gave him 2 more days to think it over. "Mom and Dad, let's not keep nagging about this. Let's wait and see." Ms. Fang declared, "One will never agree to this. He's not going anywhere. I will keep him confined to a room until the recruitment period passes. I will definitely put a stop to it." Qiao Xian remained silent, observing the conversation. Shao Sanlang rubbed his hands together and enthusiastically agreed, stating it was a brilliant idea. They should indeed do that. Shao Yunduan sighed helplessly. Qi is a grown man, not an object to be controlled. It wouldn't be fair to confine him. Elle don't care. I am his mother, and am doing this for his own good. Ms. Fang retorted. However, she cast a skeptical glance at Shao Yunduan. "Duan, tell me, did you agree with his decision?" Shao Sanlang chimed in, "Mom, of course not. Fifth brother would never be so unreliable." Shao Dalong nodded in agreement. "Absolutely, fifth brother is always level-headed." Qiao Xian pondered for a moment, then winked at Shao Yunduan with a smile. Shao Yunduan rubbed his nose and cleared his throat. "Regardless, Mom, don't worry. She will do just fine." Ms. Fang sighed and muttered, "Elle still can't shake off this uneasy feeling in my heart." Chapter 839, Not for Her You. TED by BXN0VL. C. Omicron M. They couldn't reach a definite conclusion, leaving everyone in a state of unease. They sought solace in one another's company, particularly the parents, before retiring to their respective rooms. Once they were alone, Qiao Xian smiled at Shao Yunduan. "Darling, is Qi really going? And you're supporting his decision?" Shao Yunduan smiled bitterly. "It appears that he has made up his mind. Besides, he's no longer a child. He has the right to make his own choices. It would be cruel to force him to stay." Shao Yunduan didn't want Qi to go, but ultimately it was his own life, and Shao Yunduan couldn't make decisions on his behalf. He turned to Qiao Xian. "What do you think?" Qiao Xian pondered for a moment and chuckled. "Qi is quite capable of taking care of himself. He's not impulsive either. If you can advise him to be low profile, stay calm, and prioritize his well-being, and remind him of his family whenever he's about to engage in something dangerous, I believe everything will be fine. Qi is different from his peers. He has a brother like you. Maybe you won't be able to directly take care of him once you become an advanced scholar, but in a few years, you might be able to transfer him out of the camp if it's possible. Alternatively, we can provide some financial assistance. Just look at us now. We have connections with the Xie family. If you can ask them to write a recommendation letter for Qi, it could serve as his safeguard in case he encounters any trouble, so, I believe it's a viable idea. Qi is so talented. It would be a waste for him to stay at home for the rest of his life." Qiao Xian suppressed her urge to reveal her clairvoyant abilities. After all, they were sporadic, and she couldn't predict Qi's entire future. If only she could glimpse a small portion of it in secret. Shao Yunduan smiled. "Your analysis has eased my mind. Indeed, if Qi has made up his mind, he should go. I will approach the Xie family for a recommendation letter as his safeguard. With his skills, he should be able to protect himself. If the hardships become unbearable, we can find a way to bring him home in a few years." Qiao Xian smiled. "That's a conservative estimate. I almost believe he has the potential to become an official with his talents." Shao Yunduan chuckled and shook his head. "That might not be necessary. The most important thing is that he remains safe and well." Qiao Xian inquired, "So, how do you plan to break this news to our parents? Shao Yunduan. That was indeed a troublesome task. Qiao Xian shook her head and raised her hands. Don't look at me. I'm not going to do it. It was evident that anyone who brought up this topic would face scolding, including Shao Yunduan. Qiao Xian had no intention of taking on such a task. Shao Yunduan was torn between amusement and exasperation. Of course not you, my dear. I will handle it. He wouldn't allow her to be scolded. Being his mother's son, he would shield her from any scolding. Qiao Xian chuckled. You're the best. The couple continued their conversation, sharing laughter, and eventually settled down. Qi was quite mischievous. He managed to avoid spending much time alone with Miss Fong and eldest uncle these days. Chapter 840, Getting Scolded You. TED by BXN0VL. Ms.Mi. Despite agreeing to let Qi think for a couple more days, Miss Fong couldn't stop worrying about the situation. She wanted to have a serious conversation with Qi, urging him to think carefully. However, Qi managed to avoid her at all costs, which only increased Miss Fang's frustration. The mother's relentless pursuit was met with the son's constant evasion, creating a sort of guerrilla warfare between them. The rest of the family found the situation amusing but refrained from laughing, fearing it might escalate the tension. Finally, the 2 days had passed, and the atmosphere in the household was tense. Miss Fong, eldest uncle, Qi, and Shao Yunduan were all on edge. As the middleman, Shao Yunduan had the weighty task of negotiating between them. But Qi remained resolute in his decision to join the army. Miss Fong snapped at him and even attempted to hit him, but her anger couldn't sway his determination. After venting her frustration, Miss Fong became overwhelmed with anxiety and broke down in tears. If you don't want to get married now, it'll stop anyone from coming to our door. Well, wait until you're willing to get married. But don't get so angry about our arrangements that you want to leave home. Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni were taken aback and didn't know how to respond. Shao Yunduan and Xiao Xian were completely baffled by the situation. Shao Yunduan said, Mom, what happened? Qi wouldn't leave home just because he's angry. He and Tao Tao won't get married unless they're willing to. We don't force them into anything. Miss Fong continued to sob and shake her head, unable to fully express her feelings. Sensing her distress, Yang Xiaoni decided to share her insights. Yang Xiaoni explained that Qi was no longer young, and as he grew older, many suitors came to the door seeking a marriage arrangement. This had motivated Miss Fong to explore potential matches for him. After all, good suitors were not always easy to find. On the second day after Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan had left home, a distant cousin of Ms. Fang's suddenly appeared at their door with her 2 daughters. Although they hadn't interacted frequently in the past, they were still family, and Miss Fong was delighted to see them. This cousin seemed to be quite lively and quickly engaged in a cheerful conversation with Miss Fong. This cousin was not here without purpose. She was here to build a martial alliance. She was trying to make Miss Fong to let Qi marry one of her 2 daughters. Miss Fong was not easily swayed by her cousin's proposition. Although they were relatives, they hadn't maintained a close relationship over the years. Miss Fong felt it was necessary to gather more information about this relative and her 2 daughters before making any decisions regarding the marital alliance. Rather than rejecting the idea outright, Ms. Fong tactfully expressed that her son was still young and it would be prudent to wait for a couple more days before discussing the matter further. The cousin agreed and understood, remarking that parents were always deeply concerned about their children's well-being and should carefully consider all aspects before entering into a marital alliance. Miss Fong was relieved that she could buy some time to properly evaluate the situation and make an informed decision for her son's future. She wanted to ensure that any potential match would be suitable and compatible, taking into account both personal and family considerations. Chapter 841, Deep Night You. TED by BXN0VL. Ms.Mi. After hearing that, Miss Fong felt a pang of guilt and realized that she had been too harsh with her cousin. It seemed that her cousin was actually quite reasonable and level-headed. The 2 nieces appeared to be quiet, gentle, and even attractive. Perhaps they could be a suitable choice after all. NIS. Fong was almost ready to make a decision. She decided to observe Qi's reaction first and see if he was open to accepting them, before finalizing any alliance. However, she soon discovered that her distant cousin was deceitful. She was scheming to manipulate her eldest daughter into seducing Qi, hoping to force the Shao family into marrying her daughter. As the girl entered the Shao family's luxurious home, she couldn't help but envy their wealth. The house was grand and well-lit, and everyone in the Shao family was adorned with jade bracelets and silver ornaments. They enjoyed plentiful meals with meat, unlike her own family who often had to make do with simple grains and rice. This made her even more jealous. Feeling desperate when Miss Fong didn't readily approve of their proposal, the girl's mother came up with a terrible idea. Despite her nervousness, she gathered her courage and reluctantly agreed to the plan. Initially, their plan was to stage a fall, pretending to accidentally stumble into Qi's arms. However, they soon realized that this wouldn't be solid evidence to convince Miss Fong. She could easily deny it and cause a commotion. It was clear that Miss Fong had reservations about them, which made her unwilling to proceed. If they only relied on a staged fall, she could easily dismiss it and create a fuss about the incident. Only when the girl's reputation was completely ruined would their deceitful plan have a chance of success. That evening, after dinner, the girl made an excuse to retire early to her guest room. However, instead of sleeping, she sneaked into Qi's yard and eventually into his room. Qi had his own yard, and his room's door was left unlocked, even during the night. It was an easy task for the girl to enter unnoticed. Coincidentally, earlier in the day, Miss Fong had left Qi's blankets out in the sun to air but had forgotten to bring them back to his room. As Qi carried the blankets back to his bedroom, Miss Fong accompanied him, holding a lamp to light their way. Upon entering the room, they noticed a silhouette projected on the wall. At first, they were startled, but they quickly regained their composure. Qi, known for his bravery and skill in handling crises, silently gestured to Miss Fong, urging her to stay calm. With careful steps, Qi approached and grasped the object responsible for the silhouette. The girl, caught off guard by Qi's presence, let out a scream of fright. Both Miss Fong and Qi were taken aback by the unexpected situation unfolding before them. Their shock intensified upon realizing the girl's late-night presence. What could she possibly be doing here at such a time? Soon, realization dawned upon Miss Fong, and a wave of embarrassment flushed over her. Qi, on the other hand, was instantly overcome with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. It became clear to both of them that this girl had deliberately snuck into an unmarried man's room and concealed herself in the corner with a specific motive in mind. Meanwhile, the cousin who had orchestrated this plan had been extremely anxious and completely focused on the task at hand. Although the Shao family had a sizable yard, it was not as expansive as those belonging to true noble and affluent families. Considering the proximity of the rooms, if a scream were to erupt, it would undoubtedly reach the ears of the other family members. Chapter 842, A Trick You. TED by BXN0VL. C-Omicron. The entire family was taken aback by the events unfolding before them. Upon hearing her daughter's genuine scream, the cousin felt a mix of surprise and inner satisfaction. The authenticity of the scream delighted her, as it seemed her daughter had played her part convincingly. Shao Xiaoqi, despite his gentle and introverted demeanor, had surprised the cousin with his apparent eagerness. It served as a reminder not to judge people solely based on their outward appearance. The cousin's pride swelled within her, fueling her next actions. Hastily, she rushed forward, not even taking a moment to clearly assess the situation behind the door. "Oh, my poor girl. You must have been mistreated. I will seek justice for you and ensure you don't suffer any longer." Ah. Before she could finish her words, a forceful slap landed on her face. Miss Fong, pointing accusatorily at her, screamed in outrage, "Why are you screaming? What justice are you talking about? I demand an explanation as to why your daughter is in my son's room. What devious plans have you concocted, you shameless woman?" Startled, the cousin finally noticed Miss Fang's presence. Her face filled with astonishment as she covered her stinging cheek, momentarily ignoring the pain. "Cousin, what are you doing here?" With a sneer, Miss Fang retorted, "I was here, holding the lamp for my son. Of course, I am here. Thankfully, I am here, or else my son would have fallen into your trap. The cousin was taken aback, turning instinctively to look at her daughter, seeking answers in her eyes. It was only in that moment that the cousin realized her daughter's panic had been genuine, causing a surge of regret to wash over her. Caught red-handed by Ms. Fong, the cousin found herself in a powerless position. As an outsider to the village, she was at a significant disadvantage compared to Ms. Fong, who was the mother of the provincial champion. Moreover, the Shao family had recently made substantial contributions to the village, including building a school and donating vast tracts of land to the clan. The village would undoubtedly rally behind Ms. Fong, further isolating the cousin. The next day, the cousin and her two daughters swiftly disappeared, seeking to escape the repercussions of their actions. Ms. Fong, in order to preserve their reputation, decided to keep the incident a secret, ensuring that no one in the family would ever speak of it. However, from that point forward, she vowed to sever all ties with the cousin's family. She, likely startled by the entire ordeal, advised Ms. Fong against arranging any future martial unions for him. Ms. Fong couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. She refused to let Qi entertain such thoughts and resolved to find a suitable suitor, promising herself that such a situation would never occur again. Qi had no choice but to comply and refrain from mentioning the incident any further. However, on this particular day, Ms. Fong spoke of the incident, even entertaining the belief that Qi had chosen to leave home and join the army to evade any future marital arrangements. The rest of the family was left dumbfounded upon hearing this conjecture, unsure of how to respond. Eldest uncle remained silent, his disapproval evident on his somber face. Feeling helpless, Qi turned to Shao Yunduan, his expression filled with longing and desperation. Shao Yunduan let out a heavy sigh, his head throbbing with the weight of the situation. He decided to lead Ms. Fong and eldest uncle into the hall, seeking a private space for a conversation. Inside the hall, faint murmurs of argument could be heard, but they quickly gave way to Ms. Fang's heart-wrenching sobs. Qi felt a profound sense of sadness wash over him, and his head drooped gradually. He began to consider the possibility of relinquishing his desire to join the army if it meant alleviating his mother's distress and waiting for another opportunity in the future. However, Shao Yunduan, through his persuasive efforts, managed to sway eldest uncle and Ms. Fong. With a sudden burst of emotion, Ms. Fong rushed out of the hall, engulfing Qi in a tight embrace. Amidst her tears, she cried, "Qi, remember that we are all eagerly awaiting your safe return. Take care of yourself and come back home unharmed." Chapter 843, Agreement uttered by Bexenville. Omicron Ms.Zioki's eyes lit up with joy upon hearing his parents' agreement. "Mom, Dad, you agreed?" Ms. Fong and eldest uncle couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness as they witnessed their son's elation upon receiving their approval. They realized that Qi truly desired to join the army, and it wouldn't be fair to confine him at home. They had to let him pursue his aspirations. "Yes, we did. Just remember to stay safe and come back unharmed," eldest uncle affirmed. A tinge of sadness crept into Shao Zioki's expression. He nodded earnestly. "Mom, Dad, don't worry. I will take care of myself and return home safe and sound." Okay. That's good to hear." Ms. Fong replied, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and concern. She shared a few more words of advice and encouragement with Qi, who accepted them all. Ms. Fong felt a sense of relief after receiving consolation from Shao Yunduan and Xiao Xian. Shao Sanlang and Shao Dalang were taken aback by their fifth brother's support for Qi. They hadn't expected him to side with Qi in this matter. As they contemplated Qi leaving for the army in February, a sense of sadness washed over them. If their fifth brother believed that Qi would be fine, they took solace in the notion that he would ensure Qi's safety. However, a lingering worry remained. What if something were to happen? When would Qi return to visit them after this? Would it be several more years? The thought of a prolonged separation only deepened their sorrow. The entire village was in a state of chaos due to the recruitment process. The land officer had announced that anyone interested in joining the army could freely apply. However, it was widely understood that only the foolish would willingly step forward. As a result, they resorted to drawing lots. Those selected through the drawing would be obligated to join the army on behalf of the village. It was seen as a fair approach. However, to everyone's surprise, the first section of the Shao family decided to volunteer without waiting for the drawing. Qi was enlisting in the army. The news sent shockwaves throughout the village. The villagers had assumed that the first section of the Shao family would be exempt from the drawing process. After all, Shao Yunduan held a prestigious position as a recommended man, bringing honor to the clan and sparing them from any troubles within the village. Moreover, the first section of the Shao family had already made significant contributions, donating vast stretches of land and funds for the school. These acts of generosity had earned them a level of respect and exemption from the drawing. However, those who voiced their dissent were expected to make their own contributions in the form of donations towards the fields and school before they were allowed to express their opinions. They had made such significant contributions to the village, and it was only fitting that they received certain privileges in return. That was what they rightfully deserved. However, Qi had volunteered. What on earth is the Shao family thinking? This is outrageous. Yes, how could they allow Qi to do this? It's not a laughing matter. Wouldn't have let him do it if I were them. Do you think that recommended man Shao has some insider information that could benefit them from the recruitment? You think they're after personal gains? No, certainly not. Despite the confusion and speculation, the matter had been settled. The Shao family breathed a collective sigh of relief and celebrated. Ms. Yen also felt relieved. She couldn't help but express her gratitude to Qi. She believed he was capable enough to ensure his own safety. If her husband had been selected through the drawing of lots, it would have been a dreadful situation. Ms. Niu and second uncle shared the same sentiment. They finally felt a sense of relief when Qi volunteered, knowing that their own son was spared from being chosen. Ms. Zhang's hands clenched tightly, her head lowered, and a coldness emanated from her eyes. Her lips twitched with disdain. She despised seeing Ms. Yen showering their parents with flattery like this. The first section of the family had never treated her well or helped her attain any form of prosperity. The most they had done for her was share some food. Yet, she still visited them whenever she found the time, seemingly content. Chapter 844, Settlement uttered by Bexenville. See Omicron M. Shame on her. Shao Xiaoqi had decided to join the army. Something must be wrong with his head. The entire first section of the family was nothing but a bunch of fools. Well then, let him join the army and never return. Ms.Zhang cursed silently within herself. If it weren't for the first section of the family's coldness and meddling, she would not have ended up in this miserable state. None of the Ting family members were willing to step forward. Consequently, they had to resort to drawing lots. Only the family's sole child would be exempt from this process, while the rest would be included. In the end, it was Ding Jia's youngest son, Ding Jinshan, who was selected. Ding Jinshan and the entire family were in tears. The others, who felt a mix of relief and sadness, approached them to offer their condolences. And so, the matter was settled. They would gather in the middle of February at the county and proceed to the province according to the government's arrangements. From there, they would head north. It remained uncertain which general would oversee them once they reached the northern region. Normally, this journey would take 5 years. The next day, Ding Jiazhu and Ms. Yang visited the first section of the Shao family with their son. They believed that they were in the same situation and should foster a friendship together. As soon as Ms. Yang saw Ms. Fang, she burst into tears and clutched Ms. Fang's hands. "Sister-in-law, why are we so unlucky? Our poor child." Ms. Fang's expression changed, and she became displeased. She withdrew her hands and forced a smile. "Stop crying. Our sons will be fine. Perhaps they will return as officials, bringing us great honor, right?" Ms. Fang didn't actually expect Qi to become an official, she simply wanted her son to return home safely. But Ms. Yang's words seemed to carry a sense of bad luck, and she was trying to counteract that with her own optimistic remark. Ms. Yang realized that she had misspoken, feeling a bit embarrassed. However, her eyes suddenly brightened. She exclaimed, "Oh, you're right. Recommended man Shao is on his way to becoming an official, isn't he? He will take care of Qi, won't he? Let's ask him to take care of our son too. Jin Shan, come and plead with recommended man Shao." Ding Jiazhu quickly grasped the opportunity and pushed his son forward, saying, "Yes, sister-in-law, we are all family. Please, recommended man Shao, you have to take care of us." Ms. Fang felt a sense of disgust rising within her. "Uncle Ding and Aunt Yang, you've misunderstood me. I still have the spring examination next year, and it's uncertain if I will even achieve the status of an advanced scholar. Even if I do, I won't be relocated to the north as an official. When they join the army, they must rely on themselves, practice diligently, and take good care of themselves. I won't be able to assist them." Ding Jiazhu wasn't entirely convinced. "Really? Then why did you allow Qi to join the army? You must believe it's a good opportunity." "Qi couldn't tolerate that. Uncle Ding, it was my own decision to seek a broader world." Ding Jiazhu responded curtly, still skeptical. "Seeking a broader world? What an excuse. This journey is fraught with danger." Ms.Zhang chimed in, "Regardless, you two are the closest friends and family there. You must take care of each other. Qi, you have skills like archery. My son, on the other hand, is helpless, so you must watch over him." Chapter 845, Annoyed uttered by Bexenville. C. Omicron and Ms. Fang and the others remained silent, processing Ms. Yang's words. Without the final sentence, Ms. Yang's remarks seemed acceptable. However, the last comment struck a nerve. Qi smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, we'll support each other." "Good, that's good." Ding Jiazhu and Ms. Yang continued to nag for a while longer before departing with gloomy expressions. Ding Jinshan was still unmarried, which concerned Ms. Yang. She relentlessly searched for potential suitors for her son, hoping to secure a marriage and secure a bloodline in case Ding Jinshan faced an untimely demise. However, no respectable families were willing to accept them as in-laws in the current circumstances, unless they were previously engaged and had to expedite the wedding. Ultimately, they had to spend a considerable amount of money to arrange a wedding with a modest girl during the New Year festivities. As for the first branch of the Shao family, fewer suitors approached them for marriage alliances, and the overall quality of prospects was significantly lower. Prominent families were reluctant to marry off their daughters at this time, regardless of the Shao family's standing. However, impoverished families saw it as a golden opportunity to secure a marriage. Previously, they had never considered the Shao family, deeming them too prestigious. But the situation had changed. Shao Xiaoqi would soon be joining the army, with uncertainty regarding his return from the battlefield. Consequently, respectable families were unwilling to form a marital union, leaving an opening for families of lesser standing. The Shao family grew increasingly anxious to find a suitable bride for Shao Xiaoqi, ensuring the continuation of their bloodline. Nis. Fang was infuriated. She became so angry that she forcefully expelled the matchmaker who had brought a gambler's daughter as a potential bride for Qi. Ms. Fang snapped, declaring that Qi was not getting married and that they had not been consulted about the matter. Her outburst was seen as irrational by some elderly men from the clan. They suggested that if something were to happen to Qi, at least he could have a child to carry on the family line. Ms. Fang felt a pang in her heart, but eldest uncle found the suggestion reasonable. He added his own input, which sparked a heated argument with Ms. Fang. The other family members intervened to stop the fight, and Qi himself expressed that he did not feel the need to get married at the moment. The whole issue was eventually dropped. However, rumors began circulating about Ms. Fang. Some even claimed that she was possessed and intentionally mistreated her youngest son. Qi paid no attention to the rumors. He remained happy and content, spending most of his time hunting in the mountains. This allowed him to hone his archery skills and physical prowess. Occasionally, family members like Qiao Xian would accompany him to gather resources from the mountains, but Qi often ventured alone. Qi even extended an invitation to Ding Jinshan to join him for practice. He offered to teach him archery and share some valuable tips, although he kept the teachings from his master to himself. However, Ding Jinshan showed no interest in going, and his parents forbade him from doing so. It's too cold in the mountains, and there are wild animals too. It's too dangerous, his parents protested. What's the point of practicing now? You have plenty of time to train in the military camp. It's better to rest at home, they insisted. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.